Testing, testing.
Yes, all good. Morning.
Good morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, welcome everyone. All right, now it is 9 a.m. and would like to start. And we thank everyone who has joined us physically here at the University of Johannesburg. And also we thank all our members who are online. We thank you very much who have joined us through Zoom. So it's a great opportunity that we all have to deliberate and discuss issues transport within the Republic of South Africa and also across the continent. So, but colleagues, this morning we start on a sad note. We all know Eric van Hilsten. He was here this morning. Unfortunately, he had to leave because his wife was unwell, so he was called into hospital, and unfortunately, the wife passed away. So we take this moment to just take a minute of silence, and we pray for Harry as he's going through this hard moment. Right. Thank you, everyone. Yeah. Unfortunately, that is how life is. Today we are there, tomorrow we are not there. So when we are there, let's do our best. That is how life is. So this morning, we're starting with the housekeeping, and I would like to invite the wonderful lady, Nelly, to come and do housekeeping. Nelly, you're welcome. You're welcome. So for those who don't know me, my name is Joash Mageto, the head of department in the Department of Transport and Supply Chain Management at the University of Johannesburg. So all of you feel welcome. Nelly?
Good morning, everyone. Good morning to our participant online. Yeah, it's a difficult day for us, but yeah, we have to soldier on. I believe that everyone knows me. I'm Nelly. I'm always with Harry. Today, I have to step in since he was called in earlier on this morning. Okay, for housekeeping, we have our lovely open sliding doors this side. Then also our exit doors are open as well if there'll be a need for us to evacuate. Then we have our bathrooms on this side, on our right hand side. Then yeah, I will be introducing the sponsors of the Transport Forum. These are all the Transport Forum stakeholders and sponsors who are ensuring that every month we have different sessions. They are making it possible for us. I will play in this.
What does it take to compete on the world stage? To go head to head with the best of the best? Excellence, agility, resilience, the willingness to keep on evolving. It takes courageous leadership to be bold and chart the course, to connect the dots, bringing stakeholders together, to overcome the hurdles we all face, and to deliver best practice. It's about business at the click of a button, delivering at the speed of the internet, connecting people, products, and places, strengthening our supply chains, faster and more cost-effective than ever. Since 1921, we've given voice and vision to the freight forwarding industry, navigating the tides of international trade, evolving ever more sophisticated supply chains, bridging local and global markets to move our economy forward. Welcome to our world. The South African Association of Freight Forwarders, architects of transport for over a century.
the slides with our transport forums, stakeholders and sponsors. These are the companies that are believing in what we are doing as Transport Forum, and we appreciate them. We are grateful for all these companies. Here we have the engineering news. They always publish everything that is related to.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Engineering News and Mining Weekly magazine, published on Friday, 7 March 2025. In this week's cover article, Engineering News and Mining Weekly Senior Deputy Editor Rebecca Campbell writes that a new defence review is needed to tackle the widening SANDF funding and capacity gaps. In late January, 14 South African soldiers were killed in fighting in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Some 3,000 South African National Defence Force personnel are believed to still be deployed in the DRC, with few options to relieve or rescue them, raising the question whether South Africa should have a new defence review. The Engineering News features focus on freight rail infrastructure, where collaboration and investment is required for the rail system to thrive. And foundries, forges and die casting, where a mega casting solution accelerates EV production. The Mining Weekly features focus on mining valves, where advanced valve solutions enhance water and air consumption efficiency. And wire and rope, where new products add value to wire ropes. This week's business leader is Alfred Challis, the CEO at Manzi Water. And as this week's cartoon shows, South Africa's fedora-wearing Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana was told to remove his value-added tax-hiking hat by his cabinet colleagues on February 19, leading to the abandonment of the scheduled tabling of the budget. We hope you enjoy this week's edition of Creamer Media's Engineering News and Mining Weekly. Be sure to subscribe to the magazine that offers you in-depth news about developments in the real economy by emailing subscriptions@engineeringnews.co.za. Happy reading and see you next time.
We have CITREC, we have them, they are here with us. Sorry, we can be able to engage with the ladies from CITREC during comfort break.
Learned a thing or two along the way. That's why our focus is firmly on the future. A future that goes beyond just tracking and reporting, challenging the status quo, and exploring what the power of technology combined with AI can unlock for your business. Because talking did not earn us the reputation of being the leader in fleet telematics solutions. Pushing boundaries with constant innovation did, and putting our customers first by asking, what if, what's next, and what's possible? For the power of foresight over hindsight to plan ahead and make smarter decisions. What if you could predict the optimal to increase on-time deliveries and significantly reduce long-term maintenance? What if you could predict the best tractor speed on the day to reduce wasted spray and cover more ground? Precision. Something as trivial as a few centimeters could predict the difference between maximum efficiency or maximum risk. Because in our world, and likely in yours too, having insights that can be used as foresight and a crystal clear view of the future is the only thing that matters to remain ahead for better control, better efficiencies, better overall performance. The telematics and AI solution that goes beyond tracking and reporting. Step into the future with Crystal by C-Track and experience the power to predict.
Continue with our sponsors of the Transport Forum.
In the world of express freight, there's one name that stands above the rest, Bid Air Cargo. Our airport-to-airport line haul service is the backbone of South Africa's express freight industry. At Bid Air Cargo, we don't just deliver cargo. We go the extra mile to ensure a seamless and efficient experience in South Africa. With our unwavering commitment to excellence and improved technology, we handle your cargo with utmost care and deliver it on time, every time. Our dedication to service excellence is what sets us apart. We live by our core values of service excellence, mutual respect, integrity, and accountability. When you choose Bid Air Cargo, you're choosing a partner that takes pride in going above and beyond for your freight needs. From pharmaceuticals to perishable goods, automotive parts to live animal transportation, we handle a diverse range of commodities. Our attention to detail and precision ensure that your cargo arrives in perfect condition, no matter what it is. Our dedicated teams work tirelessly to guarantee the safety and efficient transport of your cargo. We leave no stone unturned to ensure your freight arrives at its destination intact and on time. With our advanced track and trace system, you can monitor your shipments in real time. Stay informed about the whereabouts of your cargo with just a few clicks. Our goal is to provide you with peace of mind and complete transparency throughout the entire journey. We understand that time is of the essence for our valued customers. That's why we offer a user-friendly online portal that simplifies the documentation process. Obtain quotations and create e-labels with ease, saving you valuable time and effort. Whether you have a small package or a large shipment, Bid Air Cargo handles it all with equal care and precision. Our ISO certification is a testament to our commitment to quality and professionalism. We don't just excel in domestic express freight, we also cater to your international cargo needs. No matter the size of your business, whether you're a small enterprise or a multinational corporation, you can trust us to handle your cargo with the same level of dedication and attention to detail. Connect with us today and discover the difference our innovative technology, seamless tracking, and customer-oriented approach will make to your operation. Bid Air Cargo. Same-day express every day, overnight express every night.
This is our other sponsor of the Transport Forum.
At Control Fleet, innovation is at the heart of every decision we make. We execute like never before. Our features include planning, scheduling, driver application, and our value proposition is continuous value and execution for you. We love logistics and transport operations, our clients. And our aim is to provide them with new age technology, innovate their business, and take them to the future.
Africa and its people are going places, navigating new ways that move the vibrant continent forward. Unitrans puts them on the road to productivity, growth, and success, helping them get there safe and on time. We move millions of people across Africa, providing secure and innovative transport solutions that connect families and businesses, get learners to schools, students to universities, and employees to their places of work. We partner with independent operators, supporting and empowering them through advanced technology systems that enable their growth. Working with all industry stakeholders, we build a greater transport industry, expanding the essential network needed to move people safely. We are a trusted, innovative transport solution specialist with a purpose. Our belief in the power of doing accelerates economic progress across the continent and moves people towards their most prosperous future. Africa and its
And we have Uber, we have Standard Bank. I'm not seeing Kathy and the team. KJC auditors, they are not here as well.
Welcome to JC Auditors, your trusted partner in road freight certification solutions. At JCA, we offer a single integrated solution for road freight companies, enabling you to achieve all your compliance and certification requirements. Our focus on the South African national standard, RTMS, ensures your fleet meets the high standards in safety, efficiency, and sustainability. Promoting vehicle safety and fostering safe driving behavior are keys to RTMS success. With a national presence of a growing footprint in the SADC regions, JCA is your local and regional expert in road transport compliance. Our certificates are SANAS accredited and IAF aligned, so rest assured that JC Auditors certifications are recognized globally. Our team of professional road transport experts brings unparalleled experience and dedication to every client, ensuring your company is always compliant. Having conducted over 10,000 audits in the last 15 years, JCA's expertise is proven, tried, and trusted across the industry. We proudly serve South Africa's leading road freight companies, along with a host of other forward-thinking and ambitious transporters, driving road transport excellence. Join the many satisfied clients who trust JC Auditors for their road freight certification needs, including RTMS, ISO 9001, and more. Visit us at www.jcauditors.com and drive your business forward with confidence. Welcome to JC.
We have Easy Clear. Then FC Solutions. Okay, this is all our. Okay, we have In Control.
Our shipment process allows you to automate tasks that once required manual paperwork, WhatsApp messages, and phone calls. With streamlined electronic workflows and detailed reports, you can reduce administrative time by up to 50%, speed up invoice turnaround by 75%, and boost customer satisfaction with real-time updates. Shipment process types includes contract shipments, ad hoc truck hire, cross-border shipments, and rigging shipments. Our RTMS software allows you to automate data collection effortlessly, guarantee accurate calculations, and instantly generate reports on RTMS compliance. Measure and manage your fleet the In Control way.
We have the business directory. It's managed by Usis Olga. If you want to become part of our sponsors, kindly contact her. Then we thank you so much to all our sponsors and the new sponsors that are coming on board. We believe that we are going to get more sponsors from you guys. Thank you so much for the time given. Thank you, Prof. You can continue.
It's not a clicker, so you have to move with the mouse. Zwarte op.
It's behaving bad.
Just
All right. Welcome, everyone. And it's with great excitement this morning that we are all gathered here. And we start by informing you that the University of Johannesburg is this year celebrating 20 years. So nicely getting out of teenage, almost getting into adulthood. So the University of Johannesburg started in, it was a merger from the year 2005. And this year is a 20th anniversary. And it's a great celebration that we will be having this year, quite a number of events. And we will be inviting you in many of these events to participate. One of the premier events will be coming in our transport forum in April. We're also planning another premier event later in the year around September. You'll all get communication, and we look forward to your attendance to join us in these celebrations. So this morning, I have a very easy task of making sure that I introduce. I welcome all of you, and then we'll introduce the day. But remember, we started on a very sad note, and that was not nice. But we need to cheer up and get into the mood of the discussions of the day. Yeah. So we always talk about sustainable transportation. And the big question is, what exactly is sustainable transportation? So I thought it's good to go to the basics. That is like the first principles, whereby we, looks like it's not moving. It remained that good morning. Okay. Okay. All right, nice. So we start with the basic principles. When we talk about transport, what is it? What actually is transport? So we look at transport on three pillars. That is the operations part of the transportation. Then we look at the various modes of transportation, and we also look at the infrastructure. So we're talking about the cars, the trains, the buses. We're talking about the roads that we're using, the railways that we're using, the airports, the ports, the various terminals. And we're looking at the operations. What is the logistics that is involved? What kind of planning is required? And how do we manage this transport service? So when we think of all these three, Then we start thinking of how do we make this sustainable? Are we going to make it more sustainable when we use cars more? Are we going to make it more sustainable when we use minibus taxis? Are we going to make it more sustainable if we use trains? So those are the questions that we want to keep asking ourselves when we talk about sustainable transport. Then, but what exactly is sustainable transportation? So if we look at that triangle, so we say that sustainable transportation has got 3 pillars. So we ask ourselves, is this transportation economically viable? Is it economically viable? And you don't want to look at it just from yourself, but you're looking at it from a national perspective. Is it sustainable transportation? Then you look at it, is it environmentally sustainable? So which of the energies is green? So we have to start thinking of making use of green energy in transportation. And then, is it inclusive? Are we taking care of everyone when we are talking about this transportation? Remember that some people will be left behind completely from economic activities, from accessing schools, from accessing healthcare, just because the transport system is not inclusive. We have totally forgotten a given demographic and it's not taken care of. So we have to start thinking around that. How do we make transport environmentally sustainable, economically viable, and socially inclusive, where we have everyone? Then, for us to achieve this, we need to start thinking about what behavior change is required from the users of transport, from the investors of transport, from the policies that government is creating so that we achieve a sustainable transport. So there must be some form of behavior change that must take place. The planning, city planning must plan with public transport in mind. The moment you do the planning, the settlement is there, people are staying there, but you never thought that these people are going to move. You expected them to stay there and not move. It's not going to happen. People are going to move. So when the city plans are made, it's important that public transport is included. The infrastructure, maintenance of this infrastructure now and into the future, there must be a proper plan on how this infrastructure is going to be maintained. Now, maintenance of infrastructure does not include maybe something like expanding roads, because the more you expand the roads, the more cars you get onto that road. Just make public transport infrastructure usable. Is there security? Is there safety? Is there information being provided? And is it actually working? So policy and the governance, many of the African countries are doing very well in policy. They have actually the best policies you can think of on everything. The problem is implementation. We have the best policies on paper, but when it comes to implementation, we are very poor in implementation. So we need to think of what policies should we implement and make sure that we promote sustainable transportation. Now, we're looking at Johannesburg becoming a mega city around 2030. It's going to hit around 10 million people. But are we having a mega transport system that is sustainable? So that is a big question. So Johannesburg City is likely to join the likes of New York, the likes of Tokyo, in very few years to come, less than a decade from now. So what are the plans that are in place to make it actually move its 10 million people seamlessly to schools, to hospitals, to recreation activities, to economic activities? If that is not done now, then we are going to multiply the current issues that we have. But what exactly are we seeing? We are seeing the poor who are living far away in the peripheral areas of the city still paying more for transport if they have access. Many of them don't have access. So in other words, the apartheid policies are still in place. Nothing has changed in terms of transport. So we need to rethink, how do we make people not to be transport poor? Just because you can't afford transport, you can't participate in economic activities. So we need to start thinking about that and how to make it workable. We also seeing more and more developments happening in the periphery of the city, far away from the city, far away from economic activities. And many of those new developments don't have public transport in place. So what are we exactly doing? We are pushing people more and more towards private car. Then what exactly does that mean? It means we are not promoting sustainable transportation. So we have to start thinking of how does a mega city look like? And what is the transport, public transport for a mega city? And those are the questions we need to start asking ourselves. Further to that, we need to accept that minibus taxi is here. It's not going anywhere. We better accept that and think of it as part of a solution. How can it be a solution? Because it's there, it's here, it's a reality. It is there, it's moving close to 60% of the people who are using public transport. So how can we make use of it as a solution? Now, we already see that what is happening on our roads is congestion. More and more congestion, more and more cars coming up. Then there is pollution, then there is accidents. How can we make sure that public transport actually works? Because that is the only way you can be able to move people. Now you can imagine if cities like London, if cities like New York, if cities like Tokyo did not have a proper mass transit public transport as a backbone, it could be very difficult for people to move in those cities. That is where Johannesburg is heading in terms of population size. Then what are the plans to make sure that people move actually on public transport? That people can plan their public transport journeys by buying a monthly ticket and they know that they are covered for the month. That people can access economic activities, maybe if they are being subsidized by government. Right now, if you get subsidized by government to use public transport, sometimes it might not be there. So you end up using what? Private transport. So we need to think about issues to do with safety and security in the public transport. And that has been one of the major drivers of people towards private car. So how do we make the taxi ranks and bus stations safe? How do we make them secure? How do we make sure that the vehicles, the vessels that are being used are actually safe? And how do we make sure that there is communication? We have 4 modes of transport there for the city of Johannesburg. We have the minibus taxis, we have Metrobus, we have Particle there, and we also have Rea Vaya. But all of them, they don't communicate. No communication between those 4 modes. None knows what the other is doing. But they are all serving the what? The city. So are we having mega transport for a mega city? You have the answer. So what should we look at the way forward? We are saying that big problems require big what? Big solutions. Now we have big problems. We have to think big solutions. And sometimes it might come with not very popular policies, but they have to be implemented for you to achieve sustainable transport. Many of the cities around the world, they're talking about a 15-minute city, whereby you can access schools, you can access hospitals, you can access economic activities, that's your workplace, you can access recreation activities just under 15 minutes. Is it possible in the city of Johannesburg? Maybe before even you get out of your suburb, it's 20 minutes. So that is why we are saying that big problems require big solutions. We further need to create access. We can talk about having a BRT, but how accessible is it to the people who actually need it? The urban poor, do they have access to this rail via? Do they have access to these train services? If they don't have it, still we don't have a solution. So we need to make sure that transport is just, we have livable cities, and we have access to economic activities through transport. Then, finally, we are saying that it's important that the PRT system is integrated with other public systems. So all public transport systems must be integrated with at least a backbone mass transit system, like a BRT or the rail system. So if that does not happen, we still have this fragmentation of public transport, which you now know is not sustainable. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this event. We look forward to serious discussions that will come with serious action points for the mega city of Johannesburg. Thank you. Now, this morning, because of what happened, I am now the MC of the day. some task that I've never done before. So, but I take this opportunity to welcome all of you. And now we're going to have the next presenter, Ms. Aniva Gaibe, from Public Transport and Mobility Component Lead.
Good morning.
Is it
I'm joining online.
Oh, okay.
Good morning, Shay. Just checking if you can hear me.
We can hear you very well. So continue, Aniva. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I need to share the presentation from my side, or will someone be sharing it there?
Will you please share it online on the screen? You can start your video and just share your presentation from your side, please. You've heard about our circumstances this side, so we would really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you. Maybe just confirm if you can see my screen.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm also just going to switch my video off because when I talk and have the video on, it seems to freeze on my side. But maybe just as an introduction, good morning, everybody. My name is Hanifa Gaibe. I am the Public Transport and Mobility Component Lead at National Treasury's City Support Program. And I'll just be doing a brief presentation on the pathways for just urban transition in South Africa. It's a paper that was commissioned by the World Bank and the National Treasury City Support Program, and maybe just to speak about some of the recommendations and what action plans were coming out of this this paper. And I think it goes very well with the introduction that the Prof just did now, because some of the recommendations and actions that are coming out definitely links to what the chairperson has said at the beginning. So let me go into my presentation. So maybe just as a background to the city support program, and I'm not going to go into too much detail for the sake, in the interest of time, but the city support program is an acupuncture program. It sits within the National Treasury, the Intergovernmental Relations Department. And what we do is we work with the 8 metro cities in South Africa, acting as a change agent and a vehicle for collaboration and integration. So we support the cities with different programs within the leadership, fiscal, human settlements, public transport, and climate resilience components. So this is just a sort of overview or a lens at how we approach some of the programs that we are doing and the projects that we are working with at the cities. And just to say that on the outside sort of this lens and the focus areas for city support program is then the just transition. And obviously at the center of it all is our spatial targeting and spatial transformation that we feel is definitely required within our cities. So as I said, in 2022/23, the World Bank, in collaboration with the City Support Program and the Presidential Climate Commission, requested the African Center for Cities to compile this paper. And maybe as an introduction, I must just say that this paper it's a discussion paper. It's not sort of cast in stone, and it is really just, it was used, or the intention with the paper was to start thinking about this concept of just urban transition. And I'm going to say JUT, just as a short, that's how what we say. And the idea with it was to propose actionable recommendations that can unlock the potential of JUT within South Africa, and then also looking at what are the focus areas when we want to push this transition within South Africa. The funding for this paper was provided from the Nationally Determined Contribution Support Facility, which is housed within the World Bank. And the focus of the paper for now was looking at the 8 metro cities within South Africa, understanding that these metro cities provide a lead for many of the country's smaller cities. So maybe as an introduction, we ask, why a JUT and why is it necessary? So a JUT is necessary in South Africa to avoid the economic cul-de-sacs and the unjust climate change defaults, and also what the result of the apartheid legacy that was left behind. Also acknowledging that a transition is unavoidable. And right now, the only question we have is whether or not it will be just. And will it be fair? Will it be equitable in terms of the transitions that is currently taking place? And it's not just that we need to survive. We actually need to make sure that the programs and the initiatives and the reforms that we are pushing from a JUT point of view, it suits all the citizens within our country. And then also knowing that why we are working with the cities is acknowledging that the cities are an increasing part of the global climate response within South Africa. And that we also know that some of the cities have been proactive. But I think we need sort of a platform within which we hinge all of these programs on, and looking at how we can ensure that the impacts that we are seeing currently in our cities and with related to the infrastructure, where we are seeing weather-related damage to our infrastructure, how are our cities responding to this? And also that, let's look at an alternative to provide the within the cities, and harnessing the finance and the partnerships, leveraging off these partnerships that we have, what technologies exist, and then also the political support that we have for a just transition to improve infrastructure and service deliveries within our cities. With large parts of the country warming more quickly, and I think we can all acknowledge that we are experiencing this happening right now, we are seeing that, I think on average, they're saying that the average temperature is increasing by about 2 degrees every year. And that 40% of the working age of the population of South Africa will be out of employment in the next 10 to 20 years. So there is definitely this urgent need for a just urban transition. So the graph on the right is just an extract from a study that was done in 2021. And I think here it was just acknowledging that the introduction of innovation in energy technologies and systems is definitely going to have an impact on not only jobs, but also on the way we finance our infrastructure. And this graph looks at the introduction of solar and the impact that it's having on the cost of renewable energy and the investments that are currently being made relative to fossil fuels as an example of what we are currently facing with. So South Africa's JUT, it sits at the center of the country's just transition, the energy transition, the response to the climate change, and also the local economic development. And what the professor said is in his opening speech was that we are very good at these plans. We have all of these frameworks, the policies. So within all of these areas, decarbonization, our just energy transition, climate resilience, climate change, we've got all the policies. We know what needs to be done. I think the idea here now is how do we action those and implement some of these policies? So what is a JUT? The process that leads to low carbon, resource efficient, socially inclusive and spatially integrated cities. So I think that's sort of in a nutshell what we use to define what we say JUT is in terms of working with the cities. So removing the unfreedoms that constrain South African cities, knowing that the past is never dead, it's not even past. We are still currently faced with the legacy of how our cities were built back in the apartheid system, and making sure that we remove some of these, and then also making sure that the city officials, that their tasks are easier in a world that is warming very rapidly and an economy that is carbon constrained. So could this potentially open up a new source of a political economy? I don't know. I think that's something we need to explore. So, sorry, I know this is a very busy slide, but I think I just wanted to pull it all together in terms of what we are currently doing in this phase of the CSP. And in working with the cities, our big focus and the biggest vision right now is spatial transformation. So one of the big outcomes is to make townships safe, productive, and vibrant places in which to raise children, well-adjusted young people, and who are able to find employment and access to affordable and safe public transport, and to get employment opportunities in other parts of the city. I think we need to acknowledge that the townships are here to stay, that these communities that were built on the outskirts of the cities, how do we make sure that how do we turn these townships into economic nodes and ensuring that people have access to all of these opportunities? On the top right is sort of some of the action plans, and I'll go into a little bit more detail later on that came out of the paper. But maybe just to say that I think what I'd like to highlight is the elements that came out of this discussion paper. And what the team did was they've broken it up into distributive justice, procedural justice, and restorative justice. I think this was looking at how do we approach some of these actions and the transitions within these lanes. So the distributive justice is to ensure that the transition is fair. The procedural justice is to empower communities, workers, and small businesses through the transition. And then the restorative justice is to rectify the historical damage that was done in the past. And the means to achieve this vision is some of the points that is here on the screen is how do we ensure that we have reliable, affordable, and sufficient basic services for all? How do we prioritize our informal settlements and our townships? And then also package the investments within these townships and develop new green sectors that will take off and contribute to the circular economic growth of the country. And how do we connect these townships to regional economies and through industrial parks? And then obviously at the top of it all is promote a safe, affordable, and integrated public transport for all. So just quickly in terms of the thematic areas and the components within the CSP. So these are we've got these 6 components, and within these components are all the different projects. But I'd like to focus on the public transport and mobility one, as that's relevant to the topic for today. And the focus areas and the projects that we are working on with the cities is the integrated transport planning. So this speaks to what the professor said about how do we use our existing public transport systems and make them one? How do we make sure that you have this integration of modes happening? How do you bring people to your BRTs and your public transport nodes? And also then coupled with that is the devolution of public transport to ensure that you don't have this fragmentation currently happening, and that the planning of public transport sits under one authority. And then obviously ensuring that these modes and these systems are economically sustainable. So this slide is coming out of the paper. It's looking at the urban opportunities that exist, and the lens or the areas that the paper looked at was in the energy space, your transport, your waste sectors, and the built environment. So we recognize that the rapid urbanization that we are currently seeing in our cities, where over the last 10 years, people are moving into the inner cities, and that these account for over 70% of the greenhouse gas emissions of the country. So with that being said, the urban systems provide opportunities and areas for potential rapid decarbonization and climate change adaptation. And it also holds the potential for systematic change and material flows. So this slide just shows how over the next few years, how we can sort of mitigate the impact on our climate through these areas and focus areas. So why do we work with our metros? I think we acknowledge that there are certain levers within the metros that can be used to push the JAT, vision. And because they can effect change, the 3 levers that we have identified is the regulatory instruments. So these are, for example, your zoning regulations that sit within the cities, your transport-related guidelines, green spaces, and etc. Then there's the fiscal and the financial instruments that the cities have, and this is where they can ensure, for example, that budgets and finances are aligned with spatial transformation initiatives, and ensuring that there's a JAT-aligned procurement taking place with regards to the spending of the finances. The last lever being the advocacy, governance, and leadership lever is where they can convene new conversations. And I feel that the local government or the cities have that power to be leaders in innovation and be committed to this multi-level governance and ensuring that all the stakeholders and the integration between the different spheres of government take place, and that they can be the agents for change. So the focus areas in the discussion paper looked at renewable energy and energy efficiency, low carbon mobility, water and sanitation, waste management and circular economy, and the built environment and spatial planning. So in the interest of time, I am just let me go back on the low carbon mobility, but the paper is available on, and I'll put the link to the website in the chat, but focusing just on the low carbon mobility and what the action points that are emanating from this discussion paper is that there is an opportunity within the space to look at fossil fuels used by internal combustion energies and to look at how we can reduce the use on fossil fuels and what alternative energies are there. The transport sector is the fastest growing source of gas house emissions, and the road transport accounting for 91% of the emissions. I think we acknowledge that, but I think seeing the statistics really is a awakening call for all of us. The high energy and emissions emanating from the transport sector in cities is largely as a result of how our cities have been formed and how they've been spatially situated, and that sustainable mobility and urban form are, they are linked to each other. Electric vehicles are part of most automobile manufacturers' production plans, and we are seeing that now when we are working with the cities in terms of the integrated public transport network, and with the cities wanting to procure buses, the industry is now saying, sorry, we are phasing out diesel buses and we are looking at electric vehicles, for example. And it's actually forcing the cities to now look at the procurement of electric buses. So in terms of the action points, I think the first one, improve and expand public transport. Again, this speaks to what the professor said in the opening remarks of the event, in that let's continue to implement our transit-oriented development and enforce the urban edge. So one of the projects that we are looking at is how do we densify the IP10 corridors that currently exist in the cities? For example, your BRT, how do we get more people onto the BRTs, and how do we enforce that public transport system by ensuring that there is a turnaround of seats along the routes and at the public transport nodes? And then expand access and access to and integrate forms of public transport. Again, getting all the modes integrated so that there is the seamless movement of people on our public transport systems. Rehabilitate and extend the rail network. I think we're still acknowledging that rail is the backbone of public transport and that we need to work with rehabilitating it. And also, this is the mass movement and the cheapest way of moving people. Also taking people off the roads or taking transport off the roads, then you reducing the congestion. And then piloting congestion and parking charges. We, in line with the action plans, we then also looked at what levers do the cities have in order to, ensure that these actions take place. So it's again, the regulatory justice. So, sorry, not the regulation instruments that they have. So looking at principles of TOD, densification, mixed-use zoning, and then with regards to the financing, finance public transport access, affordability, and integration. The second action point is low emission vehicles. So here looking at the introduction of electric vehicles, converting your fleet, your municipal fleet to zero emission buses, and then also developing a strategy of how we can support the minibus taxi industry to convert to either electric or CNG modes. And then assist with building out large-scale EV charging infrastructure. I think this is something that South Africa needs to seriously look at. How do we support the move to electric vehicles, and what sort of infrastructure is required at the city levels, within our public transport interchanges, for example, and within our employment areas and things like that. So developing policies and incentives to increase the uptake of electric vehicles, and then also transitioning SS internal combustion manufacturing and service repair livelihoods to electric vehicles. Again, the levers for change here is providing financing solutions that promote the move to EV, create a uniform response to the EV charging tariff. I think this is also something that is going to really need to look at from electricity charges point of view in South Africa, and make sure that we are ready for that. And then also work with the auto manufacturers to develop this transition plan when it comes to jobs in electric vehicles. The last one is support non-motorized transport. I think this goes without saying that, the provide and maintain and support from a financial point of view, modes that look at non-motorized transport, for example, walking, cycling, and other low combustion modes. The outcomes of this then is improved urban air quality, increased passenger usage. Can you hear me still? Just checking. Someone said they lost my...
I can hear you.
Okay. And then also increased affordability of public transport during this whole transition. So I think I'm coming to an end, but I think what I want to say is that we need to look at, when we sort of support these plans and when we move from our normal way of doing things, and how do we transition in terms of a JUT we need to identify what are some of the metrics that we can use to ensure that we're monitoring and evaluating this shift. And some of the metrics that we identified was perhaps cities should report on the percentage of commuters using public transport in NMT modes, for example, the average commuted times by mode of transport. So ensuring that there is, that we have these 15-minute cities that Prof spoke about. And then the percentage of commuters spending more than 10% of the income on transport. We need to seriously look at how we can make public transport affordable so that you have the shift from the private vehicle to public transport, and then also reporting on the CO2 emissions. Just transitions involve people doing things differently, and we can't continue doing it the way we have been doing for the last 20 years or so. So in conclusion, delivering a just urban transition, it requires leadership that makes it easy for the metro officials to pursue partnerships, collaboration, be innovative in the way they do things, and also support them in terms of the fiscal and financial arrangements that would then improve and push towards this chat that we're speaking about. It has the potential to make the task of city officials easier, to make sure that they're better resourced and more acclaimed in terms of a just urban transition. And this can be done by avoiding climate risks that are coming together that we are seeing in the cities. And for example, the damage to the infrastructure, and ensuring that we have, for example, climate resilient and infrastructure that can withhold major floods, for example. And then taking up whatever opportunities are there in the climate space and demonstrating urban leadership. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Aniva. Let's put a round of applause together for Aniva, please. Yeah, we just need those just urban transitions. Thanks very much, Aniva, for that. So we now we would like to thank the sponsors of this event as we continue. And now the next presenter will be Ms. Lois Naude, Presidential Climate Commission. Thank you. Welcome.
Oh, I see. Okay, thank you. Good morning, everybody. I suppose I'm supposed to talk into this thing for the online. So I have the privilege to serve on the Presidential Climate Commission as one of the commissioners. So I'm going to speak to you about what is the Climate Commission doing about the question of sustainable transport. And you can't just sit here the whole morning having somebody talk at you. So I want you to please interrupt me, raise your hand. Let's, if there are things you want to challenge me or questions, please do that. So now I must go. No. Okay, so I just want to sort of say that while I'm a commissioner, my day job is with WWF South Africa, the environmental organization. Is it better if I stand back a bit? Thank you. And we've been working on the issues of sustainable transport for, I don't know, since 2010 or 11, somewhere there. And, the images on the screen give you some idea of some of the things we've worked on in that time. But I want to speak to, the previous two speakers spoke very eloquently and insightfully about what is sustainable transport. The mantra that we use in the transport sector for this is reduce, shift, improve. Sorry, I should say that that's the mantra for solving the greenhouse gas emissions from transport. So even before you start thinking about the technologies, and Professor and Hanifa both spoke to this, the first question is, the reduced question is, we need to provide people access both to goods and services that they want and access to places they want to go to. So it's a freight and a passenger question. But the reduced part is we need to do less of it. So if you lived in a neighborhood where almost everything was, your friends were around the corner, the shop is just down the road, the clinic is nearby, and you could do all of that by walking or cycling, maybe, if you like cycling, that would reduce the demand for motorized transport. And that would help reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. Then the shift is shifting modes. So shift from high carbon modes of transport to lower carbon modes of transport. For example, in the passenger sector, it's from private cars to public transport. And I think the other speakers have made a strong case that until public transport is delightful to use and affordable, we are not going to get people who can afford private car shifting easily out of their private car onto public transport. But many of us, when you travel in other countries, you're very happy to be hopping on and off their underground metros and their buses and so on. So, we know it can be an attractive mode, and it doesn't mean abandoning your private car altogether. You would still use your private car for some journeys. If on the weekend you want to get out into the countryside, there's not really going to be a lot of public transport to get you there. So it's not no car use, but less. That's the shift, the modal shift that makes the most difference in the passenger sector. In the freight sector, and I'm sure all of you know this in the sector, it's the shift from road to rail, which, I often speak with the Road Freight Association about this. It doesn't mean there'll be less road freight. It means that there will be a greater proportion of the freight moving on rail. And we know not all goods, can move on rail. Rail isn't suitable for every type of good. But there's a lot that is currently moving on roads in an unsustainable manner that needs to shift to rail. And again, it will only shift if rail can offer a service to the cargo owner that is attractive enough. So, we've got to fix rail, and I'll speak a bit more about that again. And then the last component, reduce, shift, and improve. The improve is where you look at technologies. So that's where you're looking at things like electric vehicles, perhaps hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, although I'm less convinced about that. And things like streamlining vehicles, so that the airflow doesn't retard them and use more petrol or diesel. So those are the three sort of areas where you can intervene to reduce greenhouse gas emission. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about the Commission. So on the 15th of December in 2020, I received my letter of appointment to the Commission, great honor of my life. And a commissioner serves for 5 years. So it started, early 2021 because nobody was doing anything on the 15th of December. And my term of office will end at the end of this year. But the commission is now a statutory body because it appears in the Climate Change Act. So we will persist as a commission beyond my term of office. And the commissioners were specifically chosen by the presidency to ensure that there was a good mix of different stakeholder groups. So we have commissioners from business, we have commissioners from local government, we have commissioners from labor, all three trade union federations are there. And we have commissioners from civil society, of which I count as one. And then an interesting thing that our first deputy president, so the president is the chair of the commission, but obviously the president has other things to do. So the effective chair is the deputy chair, and the first one was Vali Musa, who was previously a Minister of Environment in South Africa in the first administration. And an interesting thing that he did during his term is he made all the ministers commissioners as well. So, you know, that was a fantastic idea because people were coming to learn about and integrate climate change into their ministry's work. And also the commission could hear from them, you know, the latest updates. So those are the commissioners. What is the role of the commission? We do two things, and I argue we do a third thing. So the first thing we do is we are, in the Climate Change Act, we are an independent advisory body to government. So we do a lot of research and technical work, and the commissioners then debate and discuss that, come to, you know, some agreements and record those as recommendations on a particular issue to, it gets handed to the presidency and then to cabinet and so on. So that's the one thing. We're an independent advisory body. We also actually track what climate change action is being taken in the country. That's part of our advisory role. Then the second role that we have is to try and build consensus. So we are commissioners from all these stakeholder groups. And, you know, we try to build consensus on issues and understanding of climate change issues through our, you know, involving the stakeholder groups from which we come. And then I think our third role, where we have had some success, is that we catalyze real action by people. And I'll speak a bit more about that, you know, later. Okay, I think one of the most important things that we did quite soon after we were formed was develop this framework for a just transition in South Africa. And this was submitted to the president and then taken to cabinet and adopted by cabinet in August 2022. And so it's now a national framework. It's your framework. You know, go and have a look at it, see if you agree with what stands in there. And those sort of pillars that both Professor and Hanifa were talking about of procedural, distributive, and restorative justice, that's what we bedded down in this framework. I think that, you know, those pillars are important to keep as ways of thinking about justice, but I think we also need a vision of, you know, what is this justice? What is the procedural, restorative, and distributive justice for? What are we trying to aim? So in this framework, you'll find statements about, you know, what type of water system we need, what type of energy system we need, etc. So the content, not just the theoretical frameworks. Yes, sir. Yay! Yes, sir.
What your recommendation? That's recommendation. Or just recommendation. What can you tell us?
Okay.
During your tenure, that here are some of the recommendations that we have put in place.
All right.
Please.
Thank you. Do you want to introduce yourself, sir?
Yes, my name is Intisa Matloko. I'm from a company called Sowetech. We are a technology company.
Fantastic. So I think, this framework was a recommendation and is now an adopted document of the country. Some other adopted, we make recommendations. We're not in control of whether the society adopts those recommendations or even government adopts them. But we have had some impact. For example, the country is busy revising something called its nationally determined contribution, which is the commitment that South Africa makes to the United Nations climate change negotiations about what we're going to do about reducing our emissions in this country and what we're going to do about adapting to climate change and what money we need to do that. And the first nationally determined contribution was submitted in 2021. And I think the Commission had significant impact on the targets in that document. So, there are examples where we have impact. But thank you for that. Okay. So here is an arena where now moving to what we do about transport. So because the ministers are commissioners, under the Climate Change Act, that will change. So from next year, they won't be commissioners anymore, but they are encouraged to attend the commission. But anyway, over this period, they were commissioners or are commissioners. And so we often ask a minister, please come and, in a way, account to us about what you're doing about XYZ issue. So the Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition came and presented to the Commission about what they were thinking around electric vehicles. And then a process got underway. And I wouldn't say that the process was purely caused by the Commission. It was also original equipment manufacturers. It was also, others in the value chain of automotive value chain were also speaking to the department and so on. So the end result is that the department put out this electric vehicles white paper. And really, it's an excellent paper. I would hope that you would all read it. And then the commission did 2 rounds. We first did a dialogue just on the issues around electric vehicles, hearing from all sectors that are impacted by this, including, for example, unions. So, I think that's one of the benefits of the commission is that we do touch all these different stakeholders. And that was almost at the same time as the white paper was being approved by cabinet. We had that first dialogue. Then we had 2 roundtables. And the first one on what will it take to create local manufacturing in this country? Because I must tell you, there are 2 kinds of risks we're facing with climate change. The one is the biophysical risks, the things you're seeing, with extreme weather events, be it floods or extended droughts like in the Free State, where people are out of work because farmers can't survive in the drought. And other kinds of extreme weather events. So those are the climate impacts. That's one type of risk. The other type of risk is what we call transition risk, is that our economy is highly exposed to what the market is doing, for our export products. So one sector where that is manifesting is that the countries that we export vehicles to, are all starting to set quite stringent targets for electric vehicles in their vehicle parks. You know, so new sales of vehicles have to be electric, or like City of London has a zone where you can't take a vehicle in there unless it's an electric vehicle. So the market for the cars that we manufacture is going to fall out from under our feet unless we move in that direction. So this question of local manufacture and all the jobs that depend on that, or, you know, is a very interesting one, a very important one. So that's when we had this roundtable about what are the pathways to transition our vehicle manufacturing to electric, what type of policies would need to be in place to enable that, and what is the timeline. And then out of that came this, you know, the companies were calling for certain types of incentives. And so we held a second roundtable to look into those incentives. And here, you can't really read it, but the second document that I'm showing there is the actual financial incentives that the DTIC has put in place. And there are two dimensions to that. The one is that the OEMs, the local manufacturers, and, you know, the parts suppliers and so on, or the whole value chain, they need help to transition to manufacture EVs, but they also require that we stimulate the market domestically, because their parent companies are saying, we're not going to commit to local manufacture of electric vehicles in South Africa if we don't see a market in South Africa. So we mainly, you know, most of our vehicles are exported, but nevertheless, we are selling into our own country. And those parent companies want to see a local demand. So this document by the DTIC also lifts the import duties on EVs for consumers for a particular period. So I really think there are now, you know, strong incentives in place. Out of that second roundtable that the Commission held, that's what, you know, you can read it for yourself. That's the kind of recommendations that participants were making. Now, I think DTIC has done magnificently, but there is still room for improvement. Carl will probably speak to that just now. Yeah, and so we as WWF, you know, we're still going to do further advocacy on this. Okay, so that was the one issue around the NEVs. Then there's some work with the Department of Transport. So now on the screen is nothing to do with the Department of Transport, but I want to tell you about it. There is within the presidency something called the Just Energy Transition Project Management Unit. And what that unit did is it said, you know, we are going into the international space, committing to reduce our emissions if we get financial and other kinds of support from developed countries. But do we actually know what we want to spend the money on? What do we want to do in the energy sector? And how much it will cost? So how much money are we actually asking for? So they first produced the Just Energy Transition Investment Plan, which quantified the money we need and what we'd want to spend it on. It's the priorities for spending are the electricity supply and the grid particularly. I mean, it's going to take billions to make the electricity transmission grid able to deal with renewable energy generated anywhere in the country, dispatched from here to there, etc. So there's grid investment in there. There's a big piece for green hydrogen. And the Germans and a few other countries are totally excited about developing their supply chain for green hydrogen. But actually, we need green hydrogen in this country for our cement industry and our iron and steel industry, because those are sectors that you really can't reduce it's process emissions from the actual production process that are the greenhouse gas emissions. And so, you really can't produce those products, which are essential for development here, without, solving particular things, of which green hydrogen is part of the solution. And then the third area is electric vehicles and what we need to do there and money for that. And then the justice dimensions. So things like reskilling and upskilling of the workforce for this new energy landscape. And social protection for those workers who might not find new jobs. So those kind of justice dimensions are also costed in there. So now the Department of Transport, I'm meeting with them next week. So I don't know if my reading of this is correct. I still need to check it with them. But they are going to develop a transport just transition plan. And I think it's a similar exercise to the one for energy. What is it that we want to do in the transport sector, and how much money do we need to be able to do that? But also, what are the justice aspects in that transition? So on the screen, you can see, the stakeholder consultations that have already been held and their plan. So, if you're living near or around Johannesburg, eThekwini or Gqeberha, then, you could join one of the consultations. Yes, sir. Please introduce yourself.
Just wait for the mic.
Yeah, cool. Hi, everyone. Louise, I wanted to ask you on that funding question for the Just Energy Transition Plan. So FlexEV, I'll be speaking after the lunch break about what we're trying to do. But we are actually mentioned in that as part of the strategy, which is fantastic, and we're very excited about that. I just had a question on the funding. So, I mean, there was mention of quite a lot of funding being made available for projects. And now you said that you our government is looking at developed countries providing that funding. Is that, at what stage of that discussions are we? Is it quite far off? Is it something that we can be excited about? Yeah, if you can just elaborate a bit more. Thanks.
Okay, so part of what the Just Energy Transition Project Management Unit has done is they've created a funding matchmaking platform. So I've forgotten what it's called, the Just Transition Funding Platform. I think it's called that. But I mean, I'll get a link and provide it to anyone who's interested. But basically, you can put up your project, whether it's commercial project or a project which just needs grant money. If you're a local community and you want to put up a renewable energy installation in your community and have that owned by the community, you don't need commercial money, you need grant money. So it caters for both. And then the funders from those developed countries are visiting that platform to see which projects they might be interested to fund. And the platform also provides support for you to be able to develop your proposal in such a way that it would be fundable. So, yeah. Look, some money has flowed, not enough. And the US is just, because the US is one of the international partners that promised to give some money, they're just pulling all plugs on any funding outside their own borders. I think they're shooting themselves in the foot, but anyway, Joanne Yarwich, who's the head of the PMU in the presidency, she says their piece of the money wasn't that much anyway. And a lot of it had already been dispersed. Okay, so I think this Transport Just Transition Plan is very exciting and interesting, and I would urge people to engage with those consultations. Then there is the Green Transport Strategy. And me and some of us in this room were part of a reference group for developing that. And we made a terrible mistake in the targets. The targets are absolutely, the emission reduction targets in that green transport strategy are embarrassing in how ridiculously minor they are. And really, I don't think it was the intention of the department. I think it was sort of just almost a mistake. So now the department is looking at revising the green transport strategy. So the commission, what is the commission's role in this work with the department is, we can help bring stakeholders to the table, and also we can provide technical support if needed and requested. Because we have a fantastic secretariat who does research and commissions research. And then I'm going to just end by telling you about this alliance. This is an alliance of businesses and subnational levels of government, because it's national governments that go to the United Nations and negotiate there, but the action in the real economy, is through businesses and subnational governments having a major role, as we heard from Hanifa. So this alliance, the members stand up for an economy which is net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. They take their own action to help the country get there, and they collaborate in various ways to achieve more than they might be able to achieve if they just did things by themselves. And under that, the alliance is convened by those people at the bottom you can see, the National Business Initiative, C40 Cities, and ourselves, WWF. And under the alliance, we have a special interest group or community of practice around sustainable transport. So I would encourage anyone to join the alliance and participate in that hub. And that's the end of me.
There is a question online. Mr.
Yes.
Safia Abu, you want to unmute yourself and participate?
Yes, please. Thanks very much. Hi, Louise. Excellent presentation. Thanks very much. I have a couple of questions, but I'm going to focus on just the one. In terms of this push towards electric mobility, what is being done on the side of ensuring that the renewable side is available to be able to support this energy transition, to be able to allow for the electric mobility shift? Because it really doesn't help if we don't have renewables on board to be able to charge any electric vehicles that come on board if we're actually still charging from the grid. So what's being done in making sure that that integration is actually happening and it's a coordinated response?
Thank you for the question, Ms. Abu. So, I think people earlier made the point that we have excellent policy in this country, but we don't always implement very well. And I actually disagree with that statement. I think we have pockets of implementing very well. It's not one unified picture. So we have implemented millions of things very well. But in this climate space, what we don't have always is policy alignment. So you have different parts of government pulling in different directions. And we really need, and I mean, the commission is about to do a sort of scenarios exercise of what could be our low emissions development pathway to 2050. And, you know, using our convening and consensus building role, try to get a united picture of that for the country, because they're trade-offs, you know. Sasol employs 80,000 people. Should we or should we not be looking at migrating Sasol to a different business model? Is that even possible for Sasol? You know, if we do it or we don't do it, they're trade-offs. So that's an example. And I think this question that Ms. Abu is raising is a very important one that we have to, it's a question of demand, you know. So if you migrate the greater part of your vehicle park to electric vehicles, that will increase the demand for electricity. Even with Eskom's existing coal-based electricity, that is still better for the emission side than combusting petrol or diesel. So it's worth doing anyway, but correctly so, we wouldn't, you know, security of supply of electricity, which we struggle with at the moment, has to be there. Otherwise, you can't charge your vehicle. People worry a lot about charging infrastructure. I really would urge you to not worry about charging infrastructure. Firstly, every single plug point in your home is charging infrastructure. That's where you know, at night, we charge our cell phones. We never worry about where's the charging infrastructure for my cell phone. So you're just plugging in your vehicle at night. Where we do, I think there's some low-hanging, and Justin's going to speak to it later, there's some low-hanging fruits for that transition to EVs is the minibus taxi industry and buses. And so those would need charging infrastructure at taxi ranks or at the bus depots or so on. But yes, so WWF is working on something called the Integrated Energy Plan scenarios, where we are trying to connect the dots, because government does energy planning in pieces. It does an electricity plan, the integrated resource plan, which is currently at NEDLAC for negotiation. Then it's going to do, you know, a hydrogen plan. Then it's going to do another, and then it sort of puts all of those together and says, okay, we call this now our integrated energy plan. But actually, you have to look at these things as a whole system. And we're trying to do that work, and we hope, you know, that will then also encourage that other role players also think about it in that way, in a more integrated way. So thank you for that, for flagging that issue. Yes, sir. Somebody must stop me when it's time, huh? Is it time now? Okay. Can we take one more question from the floor? Just not to cut people off. Yes, sir? No, you didn't want to ask. Okay.
There's someone here.
Good morning. My name is Gert van Eren, independent consultant. You talked about reducing the need for traveling. It's not just the cost, it's also the time.
Yeah.
Which is have a huge effect on the productivity of the country overall. So in government, if we can reduce the need to access some of those services, for example, your driving license card must be renewed every 5 years. If we can do it every 10 years or every 8 years, it will then mean that people don't have to travel, queue to renew their licenses so often. It will then also reduce the need. Just a question that you consider the online shopping.
Yeah.
For if I want to buy a pen, then there's a courier that comes to deliver the pen to my house. Scholar transport. In the mornings, all the roads are congested because we want to get kids to school. That's also an impact. So we must just work out online shopping, the impact thereof, scholars, and then also the need to access government services. If we can reduce it, and not having to access it so often to save time, cost, traveling. Thank you.
So thank you for all that creative thinking. I mean, I really think those are, that's how we have to start thinking. In terms of scholar transport, WWF tried to run a lift club at a set of 3 schools. And because that's part of a solution to the, every parent shouldn't be running their own child in one car to school. There were a lot of learnings from there. It was not an easy thing to execute, but I do think those of us who are parents with kids in school can think about that. And then this question of online shopping. The Sustainable Transport Hub has been running a project on urban freight because we're really trying to understand, is it better for greenhouse gas emissions that I'm not getting my car and driving and a little, scooter is coming to my house, or is it worse? We don't actually, nobody's done those calculations, and we really need to understand the changing landscape because of online retail. Thank you. Thank you, sir, for your indulgence.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Lois. Oh, like you have one more question, Lois. Maybe you can just ask, then we. Okay. You can come through. You can give Lois the mic.
Okay, thank you. I just needed a mic because I have a problem with my voice. Excuse me. My name is Bongsen Shange. I'm from the organization called SAMTIA, which is South African Meter Taxi and E-Hailing, an affiliate of Santago. Actually, I serve in Santago as on a PMU, which is project management under the president. My contribution on this is you spoke about sustainability, you spoke about safety, you spoke about affordability and all that in as far as the transport is concerned. In most cases, when people do this presentation and research, they say less about the transport in as far as the taxi industry is concerned. And the taxi industry is the first and the last mile of any transport mode and is the most reliable one. But you tend to pay a lot of attention to bigger vision. But now we do have a transportation that is operating as of now that needs a capacitation in as far as the support and subsidy from the government point of view. That has not been looked at, and what a response we get from government is informal, is not organized and all that. But there must be a will from politicians. There must be a will from collaborating with private sectors. I'll make an example with the Westland. Westland has, Santaco in Westland has collaborated with the mines. They're transporting their staff at the mines called Fit Harmony and all that. So we got to start somewhere. If they can do it, so it cannot be an excuse that it cannot be done by government. Because at the end of the day, without the taxi industry, nothing will function. And nothing functions when the taxi industry pull out the plug. But we're not going there. I'm just saying we need to work on what is already there and capacitate it. And then the bigger vision, yes, can blend, can be there. You spoke a lot about rail, but the biggest network is the taxi industry. That's the biggest network. You won't travel 3 kilometers without finding a taxi, without finding a rank. You spoke about the issue of
30 seconds, please, because
Okay.
of time.
You spoke about the issue of companies, EV companies, having the question of the market in as far as investment is concerned. But if you take that market to the tax industry, already we got the market. Already we got the ranks. Those ranks can be turned into charging hubs. So you already have the market in place. It's just a matter of you looking at it at a bigger picture instead of looking at where the need is at the moment. Like for instance, we got as in the tax industry, we got the malls, the casinos, and all that we operate from. So already we have partnership with the private sector.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. I think your point is very well ahead. Lois, please.
No, the gentleman made the points well. Doesn't need anything from me.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And we're very happy for that. So the tax industry, we've always identified it as a solution that should be incorporated in the whole transport system. So please be aware that there will be a panel discussion at 12:35. There will be a lucky draw at the end. That is around 12:55. There will be a lucky draw. You can walk away with something big. So just be here. Just be here and be ready to participate. We're running out of time. We will now welcome Mr. Karel Snyman from Electric Vehicles and a solar energy specialist. Yeah, just before that, we would like to thank Lois for a wonderful presentation from the Presidential Climate Commission. And we really thank you, Lois, for the discussions that you've brought to the table this morning. Thank you very much. A round of applause for Lois. Thank you very much.
Good morning. I talk to pictures mostly, so if you think when I'm having a picture up there, I'm not saying what you want to hear, raise your hand, ask a question. Taxis are important. Anyway, I would like to start with a story. I had a trip down to Gqeberha, Eastern Cape, approximately 2 years ago from now. And as you can see, there's a map of South Africa with all the charging stations along the route. And of course, when you drive electric, you have to plan your route accordingly. And these are the areas, Midrand, Ventersburg. I live in Midrand. Ventersburg, Bloemfontein, Colesberg, Graafrenet, Jansenville, Gqeberha, all the places that I stopped to charge my car. Of course, there's this thing about range anxiety. Now, I've been driving electric so long, since 1994, that I don't have range anxiety anymore, but still you have to plan. This is going to be interesting. Now, this is an electric car
one of the first that BMW did some experiments with, and it's powered by a drive system from AC Propulsion. Now, AC Propulsion was a company that we also found many years ago when I worked for Eskom in the early 90s. And I will say more about that later, but we used their system also to convert vehicles to electric. And I want to show you later how easy that is. And this is one of the first vehicles that we imported from AC Propulsion. It is a Honda Civic that was converted to electric. This was in 1994. Some of you may not have been born by that time. But you can see I'm getting a little bit gray and old, so I've been around quite a long time. But this was not the first one in South Africa. Everybody likes to claim that they've got the first one. No, this was not the first one. This one might have been earlier than ours. You can see this was at the Diamond Rush time in Kimberley. You can see the Kimberley license plate on the car. So this was many years ago. But I drove in this car. This is my BMW i3 electric car that I had at the time, 2 years back, when I drove down to the Eastern Cape. And there you can see it charging. I show you this picture because it tells a nice story. You see, behind it, there's a very old car, rusted already. So that's past tense. In front of it is the electric car. That's now or future tense. And you can see the charging station there. This is actually at a filling station in Janssenville. They've put the charging station in the far back corner because that's not really their business. But it will in time become their business because when you travel that area, there's not many places to charge. And Janssenville is a very good position to do that. But then you also see the windmill at the back there. And that tells me there's something about renewable energy that we should think about when we use electric vehicles. And then you see the children sitting on the wall. And that's the future generation that will be involved with all of these things. So I collected a number of numbers. I drove 1,200 kilometers. My consumption was about 12 kilowatt hours for every 100 kilometers that I drove. So my energy that I consumed was 144 kilowatt hours. Does that mean something to you guys? You use kilowatt hours in your home as well. So in total, that's 518 megajoules of energy. I use megajoules because now we can compare between other energy sources as well. And the trip cost me 850 rands approximately because I paid 5 rand 88 at the fast charging stations for electricity. Now that's kind of a high price. You don't even pay that at home, but it's very convenient to have the station in places, remote places, so I can charge. But I did these numbers and I want to give you a comparison. I took a BMW 3 Series, also used 1,200 kilometers, saying on an open road, maybe 7 liters, 7 liters per 100 kilometers. That's 84 liters of petrol. That is 2,772 megajoules of energy. That's about 5 times more energy than I used in the petrol car than the electric car. And the cost is 2,100 rands. That's at least, what is it? Double, 3 times maybe. Almost 3 times the cost. So that brings me to the title of my presentation today. I was asked to talk about economic opportunities with EV implementation. And I hope to highlight some of these for you. And this is the logo as well. And we've got to remember, we need to think about these things in terms of sustainability because we want to keep on doing this for a long time. So then I asked myself, okay, I need to understand the word economy. And really, I'm not going to go through this. We're already a little bit late. I'm just going to read the bottom line. That's the careful management of available resources. We all need resources to do work. Now, in mobility work, that is moving or creating kilometers. You're using energy in your car and you're creating kilometers. And if you want to be exact in this, it's person kilometers that you create. So public transport is many persons kilometers. In a car, mostly in South Africa, on average, 1.4 persons per 100 kilometers. So the car is actually the worst thing to use when you want to commute. But we'll talk about that later. So essentially, it means we should reduce waste. Okay? We need to be productive and efficient and minimize waste. And we can measure this. We can look at the pollution side, carbon dioxide or global warming gases per 100 person kilometers, megajoules per 100 person kilometers, how much it costs, the space it uses, and then also the time it takes, because time is also money. I will show you that a little bit later. We typically forget about space. We'll touch on this. But if you think about the BRT system, you should measure it in terms of space. I don't think it does very well compared to that. And then Louise referred to this: reduce, avoid, shift, and improve. That is really practically implementing this thing about energy efficiency and using less energy to travel. And I'm mostly going to focus on the efficiency of travel in terms of the vehicle and then also the technology. But it essentially means doing more work with less resources. And that's the economy of this whole thing. And that's what all the other economic opportunities are based on. So then I've taken my numbers and I've put that into bigger numbers, like the fleet of petrol vehicles in South Africa, about 5 million of them. So I've then said, okay, on average, people travel about 15,000 kilometers a year. Do you? Do you know how much you do a year? 15,000, okay. I just calculated yesterday because I checked my slide. This is the older slide. It's from 2 years back after that trip. And I actually checked, I traveled last year 23,000 kilometers. Now, it's not because I want to travel so much, but it's so nice to drive an electric car. I find an excuse to drive every time I have an opportunity. So, okay, so we stuck to the 12 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, and that's 1,800 kilowatt hours of electricity, and that's 6,480 megajoules of energy, costing the person over a year 4,500 rand. And that's at electricity price that I pay normally, 250 rand. Do you know how much you pay for electricity? It's so cheap, huh? You don't even know. Okay, then if you take that to the number of fleet vehicles, it comes up to about 22.5 billion rands that we pay for electricity if you had an electric car. Now, let's take a look at petrol. Same amount, and here I took 9 liters, 100 kilometers, because now you're traveling in the city. There's congestion, all these other things. Not 7 anymore, it's now 9. And you use over a period of a year, 1,350 liters of petrol. And that's 44,550 megajoules of energy. And that'll cost you as a person, one car, 33,750 rands. Now, for the fleet, it's a little bit bigger. It's 168 billion rands. Now, look at the comparison there. Look at the saving to be had. Think about the multiplier effects in the economy if you have more money in your pockets. Now you're driving electric, and just for the energy that you would have used in your petrol car, you have this massive saving. That's not even talking about maintenance, but the first 5 years anyways, including the price of the car. So now I did another calculation, just a quick one. On the left, that left bar, that's the amount of energy that we used in that year for our petrol vehicle fleet. And if you convert them to electric, you only use 101 terajoules of energy. Now, you also do not have to pay the foreign exchange. That's money leaving our country to import the oil and the product, white product. We don't really import oil anymore, do we? We lost our refineries. Well, sort of. Not completely, but it's almost gone. Anyway, that's a big amount of money to keep back in the country. If you have electric vehicles, you don't have to pay that. It stays here. The next bar, that tells you how much we pay as a community for the petrol we drive and we use in our petrol car. Almost 200 billion rands. That's made up of the normal price, the basic fuel price of 82 billion rand. And then the margins and costs, I call that subsidies to the oil industry. And then levies, the taxes that the government gets. Now, the government will lose those taxes, the 73 billion rand, if we move to electric vehicles. But you can see there's a trade-off. There's a massive trade-off. First, the 109 billion rand of foreign exchange that we now get to keep inside our country. But the thing is, if you move to electricity, the cost will halve. And if you move to renewable electricity, the cost will halve again to about 20 billion. And I found this study, the TIP study that Gaylord did, and they're doing very good work. So I compared my numbers with their numbers. And they say that low operational cost of transport, that's the cost of electricity, compared to the cost of petrol and the saving that you'll have, it'll result in a almost 70 billion increase in disposable income. What would that do to people to have that amount of money in their pockets? Now you can increase your lifestyle. You'll go out and buy things, and there will be people that will have to build those things that you buy. So you are creating economic opportunities here for many people, not just for yourself. It's not just saving for yourself. I can promise you're not going to put that money in the bank. You're going to look for things that you need, that you want to buy, that you can now suddenly buy. And then also there's a savings in foreign exchange. And in his case, he says it's about 80 billion rands. I had 101. I think it's close enough. So that money then stays local. It can support local jobs, job creation. The money local is lekker. Let's do it. Let's keep that money. Let's pay the Arabs and all these other guys for the oil. And then, of course, it means that Eskom can have sales. Louise mentioned that you'll plug in your car at night when you get home, and it'll be charging overnight. You can set the charging start time to be after the evening peak time, and then you can get a rate maybe cheaper from Eskom because they are not selling their off-peak electricity, but now they can. So without adding any additional capacity in Eskom, they now can sell what they don't sell normally overnight between the evening peak and the next morning peak without adding any capacity. And electric vehicles will only add about 7% of their current demand. So it's not a big problem for Eskom. The problem is when Eskom cannot reach those peaks in the morning and in the evening. That's when we run out of generation capacity. But it's not a problem with electric vehicles. And I've traveled down to Cape Town when it was, I think, stage 6 load shedding, and I had no problems to wait at chargers for charging my car. I think maybe I was lucky, but still. So then, of course, there's other benefits as well, like cleaner air in the cities. That means lower health costs and these type of things. Now, I just want to touch on waste. And really, I'm going to run through a number of slides that has just been put together. And really, the purpose of this is to make you feel very bad about driving your petrol car. And I say that up front so that you know. It starts with this thing of burning petrol because it results in exhaust emissions. And these exhaust emissions are very hazardous. First of all, there's the climate change thing. I'm not going to say anything about climate change. Everybody knows about that. I'm going to highlight other things. There's poison in this. And this poison gets into your body in places where you would not like it to be. And this poison kills about 7 million people every year on Earth. Now, COVID killed about 4 million people. And there was a big hoo-ha about that. But nobody's talking about this pollution because we love our cars. Let's not say anything bad about them, right? Oops, let me go back. It's a bit awkward. And let's look at time. A worker in America uses 50 minutes to commute to work a day, to work and back. And there's about 120 million workers that do this every day. That's about 6 billion minutes a day. Now, 6 billion minutes divided by the lifetime, that's about 37 million minutes, if you get to the age of 70, is 162 lives that are wasted every day. Now, in America, they value a life at $9.2 billion. Multiply this by 162, then you're wasting $1.5 trillion every day in America because of congestion. Just because you drive this massive car, 3 tons of steel with 1 person inside. Makes a lot of sense, huh? And the car's a baddie. You can see the car's parked most of the time. Only about 5% of the life of the car you use driving. And then if you look at that center drop, that orange triangle on the top, that's the amount of energy that you have left after you burned the energy in the car, creating a lot of heat and all kinds of other things to move yourself. You waste about 80% of the energy in the fuel tank. And then there's deaths, and it takes up a lot of space, this car. 50% of the city's surface is because of roads and parking areas and these sort of things. No, you can't show me that. I started late. But I will try and hurry up. So the petrol car, and yeah, I want to introduce a small car. Let's call it a right-sized car. And I'll move to the right-sized car immediately because of the time, not that slide. You can see if you have a smaller commuter car and you charge only at off-peak times, Eskom might charge you only 1 rand per kilowatt hour. You will consume only 5 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. That's about 27 megajoules of energy, and it'll cost you 5 rands only. Now, because of your big ego, you might not want to own this small car. But this small car in time will be an autonomous car driving itself. And you can order this car using your cell phone. You can also give the company that operates the car your Google address. So it knows when you need to be picked up and where you need to be dropped off and when to get you again. So that's connected transport, but for the future. This, Louise touched upon. This is just showing the electric vehicle is still clean, even if you use coal. We are sitting on the left of Poland, which is the second from your right, the highest polluter. So South Africa is highest, pollutes more than the highest polluter in the world. Our energy, we lead the world in terms of energy intensity in South Africa. The amount of pollution we produce for every unit of energy that we produce because of Eskom burning coal, and not great coal, bad coal, and because we export the rest. And then, of course, of Sasol. We are really a baddie. This slide here just shows you the efficiency of the electric car. If you want to have 13 units driving your wheels, you need 18 in terms of the electric car and 100 in terms of the petrol car. Let's go ahead. I'm not going to say too much about that. I told you about Eskom having a lot of energy at off-peak times. That's about 38 gigawatt hours of energy available. And that can charge the batteries of 6 million cars, each traveling 50 kilometers the next day. So we have a lot of energy that can be sold at a very low price to users of electric cars charging the batteries because Eskom want these sales. If Eskom can flatten that demand curve that is very peaky, Eskom can reduce the price of electricity because they become more efficient. And they can reduce it by about a third of what it is now. But we all have to work together. But there's a problem in South Africa. It seems like we don't really want to work together. To create these sort of things, we need to all work together. We need to understand the needs of each other and help each other to reach the objectives that we want to get. Now, this is an old slide. It just shows you our energy balance a couple of years back. Doesn't have everything in there. The rest that we use is small. Coal and oil is big, but it's not really crude oil anymore. It's now a clean product. I want to show you how efficient our economy is, or really how inefficient. We throw energy away. You can see the production losses, that's converting the primary energy into secondary energy, is massive. And then in our economy, because we are inefficient in our economy, we've got massive consumption losses. We throw the energy away. And only that small green bubble at the bottom, that's the energy turning our economy. So if you can find an alternative way to generate energy, you only need that little bit of useful energy at the bottom to turn the wheels of our economy. Think about it. You don't need the rest. And that's why people always get it wrong when they compare the energy consumed by electric vehicles with petrol vehicles. They say we need the same amount of energy, but you don't need that. It's about 5 times less energy that you need. So Eskom will not produce the same energy content that is in the liquid fuels. So this is what we have in South Africa as well. When we had oil, the efficiency of the petrol car was 15%. So 85% of the energy in your tank you throw away. You've paid for everything. It's like buying 5 hamburgers and throwing 4 away and eating only 1. And then if you look at Sasol, you throw 93% of the energy away. But if you have an electric car and you use even coal-generated electricity, you are 24% efficient. But of course, if you go to energy that is very efficient coming from the sun, it's more than 70% efficient. I'm not going to talk about this slide. I'm just going to say there's various kinds of electric vehicles, from one with just a battery, then the hybrids, and then there's also the fuel cell electric car. If you want to compare these with each other and starting with the same amount of energy on the left, you can see the hydrogen vehicle only can travel 173 kilometers, where the electric vehicle can travel 405 kilometers. And then there's also this e-fuels thing that's becoming popular now, but you can see that's even less efficient, 52 kilometers. Hydrogen is not a solution for transport. Hydrogen, you've got to be very careful with. Generation of hydrogen, green hydrogen, takes about 3 times more energy than you produce. So think about it very carefully when you want to do this. Louise mentioned 2 areas that might be attractive for hydrogen. That's cement and steel production. So we need to clean up our dirty hydrogen first before we talk about green hydrogen for certain applications, because we don't have green hydrogen now. Nobody produces green hydrogen. Hydrogen is very difficult to work with. My time is up. I should continue. So that's just comparing the electric car with a hydrogen car. This is what I do at home. And there's my situation. I'm not going to go into that. I don't have time for that. But I charge my car at home using my panels on my roof that I put on there when I took my home off the grid. Because I work from home and I have people working from me from home, at my home. And when Eskom has got a power outage, everybody sits and look at each other, maybe drink some coffee and talk about nonsense. We can't work. And you've got to work to be effective and efficient. I'm in business for money, for profit. So otherwise, you're not economically active. Sorry, there's a question there. Can I take one quick?
Yeah, I think your presentation is commendable and it's an eye-opener. Number one. Number two.
I'm not finished yet.
I think, but so far, I think you're far off. There used to be, many years ago, when I was young, we used to take electrical bus to Dunkel. I think you need to look at that and compare that with some of your things. They were in Johannesburg. I think Metro in Johannesburg can give you those stats so that your comparison, we can look at now and the then.
Thank you.
I think that will
Very
be
good
important.
advice. I appreciate that. So they're also not, can you see the slide? On the left with the electric car, they forgot the inverter and the battery. It should also be there. But it seems this is not too far out because these guys are doing it. They're transporting their solar cells on top of the electric vehicle roof. And when they park, they hold them over the car. And then they charge their car while it's parked in the sun, of course. Okay, and she is also somebody that has been charging their vehicle with sunshine. I've built a solar charging station for the IDC. You can see this you can do at home. When people talk about these things, they say, don't try it at home. I'm encouraging you to try this at home. You can see it's not very expensive. You can do this at home. And people think, well, in South Africa, we are really blessed with solar energy. We can produce 800 watt hours per square meter. Now that means you can drive your electric bicycle 38 kilometers. An electric train like the Gautrain, 14 kilometers. But everybody on the train has got to have their 1 square meter of solar panels, of course. And then I wanted to talk to you about, oops, why is it not going? Oh, there we go. I'm just going to highlight one thing here. I wanted to put energy into perspective, how much we use. To drive, you use 320 megajoules of energy. To drive electric, the same car, 54. But I think I've showed you this before. Maybe just the targets. What we can do, what is achievable, what is possible. We can go to 20 megajoules per 100 passenger kilometers in a small commuter that is right-sized, and 10 in terms of public transport, if you're talking about a light, personal, rapid rail system. And I'm going to show you pictures just to show you how this fit in. Now, this slide shows you the dirtiness of various options and the space some of these take. I'm not going to talk about that. I'm just going to show you the next slide where we have this small vehicle and it fits in between the car and the bicycle. And this is what I believe we should have in our cities. It uses only half a current lane if you do need a car. I see Louise is shaking her head. Yeah, it's very sexy, these things. But it's not the ultimate solution. There's more. But if you need a car, if you need wheels, this is the thing to use. And I'm saying these things will become autonomous. They'll come pick you up wherever you are. Ride hailing without even a driver inside the car. And it's not far-fetched. That's this one on the top left. That's Renault. It's already available. Then the Nissan, then the Volkswagen, and then the Toyota. These have all been produced as prototypes. They're just waiting for the market to change their minds and become properly orientated towards sustainable transportation. If we look at this small car, that's a Wuling, manufactured in China. And for a couple of months, it beat Tesla in terms of sales. So the people are getting ready for this. If you look at this, energy in the home, I pay 50 Rand for my home energy. Why do I pay 160 for my petrol car? Better to pay 30 for my electric car and even only 5 for the small commuter. I spoke about rapid rail, rapid rail. You can have it you can share the space of the road with it. It's a cubicle that you get in, and it's only R1 per kilometer per person. Now, I want to get practical, and I'm going to close with this. You can do it. Who are business people here? Who's running their own companies? Okay. This was, I see there's Cometer at the back. They also know about these things. But this University of Stellenbosch had a motorcycle that they rode all the way from Kenya to South Africa. It was one of these motorcycles. This started off as a very small startup operation, converting internal combustion engine motorcycles to electric. But now it's more sophisticated because they've received, well, they've created attention, draw people's attention to them, and now they're getting money. And they can build this motorcycle. It's got attractive specs, and I'm going to talk about that. Ask her how you assemble the motorcycle. You can see there's the, doesn't show there, the motor just behind the chain there. There's the compartments for the battery. You can take out the batteries and charge them at this hub. And you can see the hub is solar powered. So all these guys using these motors, transporting people and goods, they're using solar energy to do that. And these guys do buses too. They've now started converting buses in Kenya. People that were not trained as engineers. People that did not have all this university education. People that did not have all this money to start with. But they started small. They just showed the intent. And then the support came. And now even China is supporting them as well. I think they see the opportunity there, of course. This bus is also attractive. And then we have done this before. Essentially, we replaced this massive engine on the left with a small motor that does the same work, but just using much less energy. And the battery sits in the platform of the car. We've converted this to electric, and we used these components to convert this to electric, the combi. It's on the way to Robben Island. We even took it down to Sasol's mines. We built this game viewing vehicle in South Africa. It was a project together with Nissan. There's the batteries. Overseas people came to take a look and see what we did. This combat vehicle was built by Danel. We even had this stand by the DTI in France in 2002. So we can do this. But we have to create much more. And I'm closing with this slide. Thank you for your patience. We need a whole ecosystem around this. You need energy power sources. You need a smart grid. You need infrastructure, smart cities. People refer to that, home charging stations, battery recycling, and then maybe to start with conversions. I'm sure you're happy for me to end, so I'll end with this slide. We need to do these things not just for myself, for my own profit. We need to think about the greater good. We need to do this for other people because essentially we serve each other, we serve other people. So let's stop talking and start doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Karen. That was a wonderful presentation. Round of applause for Mr. Karen. All right, great. Now we're making good progress. It's now time for a comfort break. We can grab a cup of coffee, tea, water, and then we come back and sit and continue having our coffee as we network. Please, we have 10 minutes. Thank you very much.
Kry maar wil jy goed nie lekker saamwerk. Ja.
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 Dat komt ook.
Rudy, aangenaam. Ek moet eers toemaak.
Dus kan eerst kijken of die PDF in werkt.
Ja.
Want die prijzen, die PowerPoint en zijn format gewoonlijk gooi ze een beetje uit. Zo is daar twee enetjie van boven.
So, jy wil hom so as 'n PDF dan.
Ja.
Laat ek hom net gou opsit.
Ja, kom ons kyk net gou of hy by is. Miskien share hy die ander ene. Wil jy gaan kyk of hy
ons die PowerPoint het mos die funksie wat hom outomaties extend. Dan die screen share daar.
Ja.
Extend of duplicate of wat ook al.
Anders kan ons gou kyk lyk die PDF ene of
die
PowerPoint
ja.
ene. Kyk as jy werk hy.
Ja, hy het outomaties ingebou.
Ja, die of so.
Yeah, good morning. Let's get back. Let us be ready for the next session. All right, the online audience, we're ready for the next session. And our next speaker is Mr. Rudy Creel from Go Metro. And they will be talking about the electric minibus taxi, a case study of the Rhode Island. So, Mr. Rudy, please. Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let's try again. Good afternoon, everyone. How are you doing? Thanks so much for being here and giving us the opportunity to speak, Prof. Appreciate it. First of all, before I get into the presentation, I just want to say thanks to everyone here. I think the longer you are in this space, the more you realize how small it is. And you see the same faces over and over at these types of things. But also how important it is for us to work together and know each other. So I just want to say thank you for keeping the energy, whether you're from government or from industry or a policymaker. I think everyone has a role to play here, and just want to thank you for that. Yeah, so my name is Rudy Creel. I am a transport economist, and I've been working for the last 4 years with the FlexEV team on solving the problem of creating a more sustainable minibus taxi sector. And we've been saying it the whole day about how important the taxi industry is. And
kilometers. And the driver changeovers and stuff like that, and the driver ratio to bus ratio.
I hired someone to
it's
do
a continuation of the existing contract suits them because it's
great.
Sorry.
Okay, so I just want to quote Prof in saying, he said the taxis are here. They're already here. They are important to us. They are the backbone of our transport industry. And we always say that the taxi industry is the heroes of our nation. Without them, everything comes to a standstill. We've experienced this. And we need to work with the taxi industry in making it more sustainable and achieving our goals, right? So we all know the specs. So I'll go through it quickly. The taxi industry contributes to about 80% of public transport in South Africa. It employs a lot of people. It transports millions of people a day. They are obviously a really big consumer of diesel and fuel in the country. And because of that, also emit a lot of fossil fuels and global warming emittance, right? And that is the problem that we want to try and solve. So the question comes up on like, how do we actually do this? How do we decarbonize this industry? And we think that we've found a way in working with government and working with the industry to make this thing happen, right? So what has been happening is that we have actually found, and sorry for the formatting in the slide, it's gone a bit wonky, but I'll just show you this photo instead, and then I'll tell you what the previous slide says. So we've imported the first newly built electric minibus taxi. We call it the Ikamva. It is E is for electric and Kamva is future in Xhosa, as far as I understand it. And this taxi is actually in Joburg at the moment. It's a 15-seater vehicle. It has a range of about 250 kilometers, 200 kilometers fully loaded. It is sufficient in our respect and the data that we've collected to be implemented and functional in the main in the taxi industry around South Africa. And we're very excited about this, obviously. So we launched this at SMA. I think our SMA colleagues are here today. Last year in October, and we got very good reactions. We got some truths. We got the industry engaging with us. We had Sintako National pull the banner off the vehicle, which was a very special moment for us. And we're very proud on what we're doing at the moment with this vehicle and what we're trying to achieve. So we've partnered with Higer, who is a Chinese OEM. They are the third largest electric bus manufacturer in the world at the moment. And we've tested this vehicle quite thoroughly, and we believe it's a great vehicle and can work very well. We obviously also know that something that's being produced somewhere else needs to be Africanized, right? So you can't just take something from China or from America or from Europe or from any place and pop it into Africa and expect that it's going to work as it should. We know that, for example, the handles of the door is something that goes through a lot of strain. We know that the bearings in the doors, we know that the road conditions are quite rough. So we're designing this thing with Higer to be adequate for the industry. So what is our solution? And I think let's just talk quickly about the 5 main barriers to adopting electric minibus taxis in South Africa. The first one, there's a lack of supply. So you can't just go to a dealership now and buy yourself an electric minibus. The models aren't out there. The second problem is that if you find a model, we all know from looking at the EV industry is that it is quite expensive. And a big portion of that is with regards to the import duties, unfortunately, which is about 40 to 43% import taxes at the moment if you want to import an electric vehicle. So it's quite expensive. In many cases, double the price of a new Quantum. Then if you were able to find a vehicle and you were able to buy it at an affordable price, now you need to charge the vehicle somewhere. And I think our colleagues previously said that where is the taxi industry going to charge? They need to charge throughout the day between trips. So they need to have charging stations within the taxi ranks. And then if you've managed to do that, you need to find a OEM or a partner that will actually look after your vehicle with you, provide you with the parts that you need. And then always the luring one, number 5, is load shedding. And I was going to speak about this a bit, but I think, Carl, you actually summarized the solution quite well. So there are various solutions from solar, which is a part of the solution, not the entire solution, but also scheduling, making sure that there's a network of hubs where you can charge. For if one area is in load shedding at the moment, taxis can go charge at the other one. And just reiterating what Carl said, the transport peaks, as in the morning and the afternoon peaks, actually correlate very well with the energy peaks, which means that taxis won't really charge in the peak time of Eskom's load shedding. It will charge in the middle of the day, in the mornings, and in the afternoons when people are not moving, which is good for us because then energy is not being consumed and we can flatten that curve. Right. So we have been working on a solution to solve all these problems, and we think that it's a viable and a good solution. So just quickly taking you through our company vision, we've sourced a taxi. We think it's good for the industry. We've been able to make it affordable by working with various partners and also working in different business models, which I'll tell you about a bit later, that one reduces the cost of the vehicle to a similar cost to that of a Quantum today, but also reduces the risk for the operators of new technology. And our long-term vision is to build these charging hubs within taxi ranks, and we want to be the supplier of these taxis to the industry and work with the industry to decarbonize it in whole. And in our long-term vision is to locally manufacture, create more jobs, and really make it a local economy, keeping the money in South Africa where it belongs. So a bit of the planning and the work that we've been doing over the last 3-4 years. So we've tracked over 1,000 days worth of internal combustion minibus taxi data. This is mainly in Cape Town. That's where we're from and where we're starting at the moment. But there's a reason I'm in Johannesburg, so just wait for it till the end. And the goal of this is really to see, we can get the taxi. Will it actually work in operations day to day? Will an operator go stand without charge in the middle of the day, given our strategy? And the answer is that 90% of the taxis that we have actually mapped and tracked it's feasible for them to move over to our model. which is fantastic news. With that also, we can also look at how much they're going to save in terms of maintenance cost, in terms of charging cost, in terms of not paying for fuel. All those numbers that Carl also mentioned is a very, very good presentation to do before mine. You saved me a lot of effort. But there's a lot of savings for the industry that can be held there. So these are just single vehicles that we track for a period of 2 weeks each. I'm not going to go into too much depth on them. And the business model. So let me go to this slide first. So for the taxi operators, we see that there is about a 3 million rand total cost of ownership saving over a period of 10 to 15 years. So that's 3 million rand more that you'll have in your pocket by working with this model and adopting electric vehicles. So there's a considerable saving. The business model that we currently have in mind, and I just want to make this precursor as well, is that we're working with the industry throughout our process, from national Sintaco to provincial, to local associations, to the drivers of the vehicles, to the commuter of the vehicles. We're really like trying to understand exactly what the pain points are and how we can work together to make this a reality. And one strategy that we found is this one on the board. So FlexiV, our company, will be investing in charging infrastructure in the taxi ranks, and I'll show you an example of this one now. We'll also be providing servicing for the vehicles because we understand this is a new industry and not every mechanic around the corner will be able to have the skills to work on a taxi, right? So we'll be providing the servicing level, which by the way is much easier than a Quantum or a normal diesel vehicle. And then we're looking at a model where we are leasing out the battery packs of the vehicle. Now, you're thinking, okay, so I buy a vehicle from you guys, but the battery is not included. And yes, that is what's going to happen. And I'm going to tell you the big advantages of that. One, a big component, the biggest component, cost component in an EV is the battery packs. Now, it's coming down, but it's still about 35% of the vehicle. If we are able to sell the vehicle without the battery pack, you can buy a Ikamva electric vehicle at about the same price as a new Quantum. That means that it's suddenly become a very scalable model and something that every taxi operator, taxi owner can consider doing. The other benefit about this is that you don't have to worry about the batteries degrading. You don't have to worry about replacing those batteries after the 7 to 10 years that the vehicle is operating if it's required. So this is the model that we're working with. We're selling vehicles, but we're doing the battery leasing model. And we're also, in return for that relationship, providing access to charging infrastructure and the servicing of the vehicles. So this is just a figure showing the cumulative profit of an electric minibus taxi compared to a normal internal combustion engine vehicle. The cash flows are much better because the same amount of money can come in, but reduced expenditure on maintenance and on fuel over time. So where are we at the moment? What are we trying to do? We're still quite a small company. We've got big dreams and we're starting out in Cape Town. That is where we're located at the moment. So the first facility, the first charging hub will be based in Century City in Cape Town. This is a key facility. There's a lot of development happening there. There's a big workforce. There's a really significant taxi industry presence there. And the rank that we're looking at is a Century City taxi rank. There's about 15 minibus taxi associations from across Cape Town working and operating from this facility. There's more than 100 taxis operating there. And so we're very excited to get going there. It'll be just across from the BRT station as well. So just the plan that we're looking at here, it might seem like a lot, but just look at the picture. So we'll be building 10 charging bays, each one and 5 charging stations. So each station has 2 nozzles and it can charge a vehicle up to from 20% to 100% battery in about 40 to 50 minutes a day. And based on the data that we've collected, we've actually seen that the taxis operating from Century City specifically, they spend about 4 or 5 hours a day inside the rank, actually just dwelling in between the peak times. And so that is ideal time for you to just plug in your vehicle, recharge fully between your trips, and be able to run at a much lower operating cost than you usually would. With that, we'll also be putting up solar over those canopy, but also in the long run, we want to put up solar throughout the entire rank so that there's shading area for the commuters. We know that's quite a big pain point as well. And so this facility can support up to 80 minibus taxis going electric concurrently. So we're very excited about that. And then the final slide, I think I might have spoken a bit quickly, but I think it's good. It's always nice to have discussions, so we can maybe go to questions. Why am I in Joburg if we're working in Cape Town? Well, we want to expand to Joburg as well. So the plan is to do our proof of concept in Cape Town at the Century City facility. But we want to move quite rapidly to the Joburg area, working with government, working with industry, forming partnerships that can make this thing work. And we're doing that in we call it a SPV model. So essentially every minibus taxi rank with its charging facilities is its own company, which means that the industry can get involved in ownership. The industry can buy into the operations and actually also profit from this thing. And it can just be a more holistic system. So we're expanding in Cape Town. We want to build a network there. We plan to have our first POC up and running in this year. And then we want to start expanding to the Joburg area. Like I said, we're looking for local partnerships, and that's not just with government and with industry. It's also with universities. It's with students that are looking at starting a career in e-mobility. We think that the young energy and the ability to learn is really important in this industry because it's still quite young. So we're looking to partner all over. We're excited about this work that we're doing with the taxi industry and about the change it can make and the sustainability that can come out of this thing. And that is about all I want to say. So thank you so much for listening. And I'll be keen to discuss with you guys. Yes, madam in the back.
I mostly insure minibus taxis, and this is exciting. I just wanted to check with you due to the Chinese make vehicle, the lifespan of this car, the insurance, are the insurance companies on board, and the panel beating companies, are they on board as well? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zinzi. Yeah, so
maybe you can take more.
Okay, I'll write it down.
Hi, Rudy. My name is Maserati from ABSA, and I'm also actually a student here as well, part-time. It's a very cool concept, and I wish you all the luck with your proof of concept and your expansion kind of plans. Sorry, let me speak louder. I just wanted to ask, you mentioned financing. How do you provide that solution for the industry? You said they can actually purchase the vehicle without the battery pack, but if obviously you can't drive the vehicle without the battery pack. So how's that financing working? Have you partnered with local banks? Have you spoken with local banks about providing financing options for that? I think that's a follow-up question once you answer how you guys finance the industry. Yeah, and that's basically it. Thanks.
Awesome, thanks.
I just want to mention there was a question online, but it was actually for the previous speaker, but I read it. Do we have a charging infrastructure ready in South Africa?
I think, let me reply and then Carl, you can take the last question. Yeah, so thank you so much, Zinzi, for the question. So yeah, we've been chatting to all the organizations from financing to insurance to the taxi spare parts suppliers. They're quite a big presence as well. To the importers of components and vehicles and the answer is yes, we've been engaging with them. And the feedback that we've been getting from them as well as from the industry itself is that there is a lot of excitement. I think that they've preempted this is going to come. There hasn't necessarily been certainty on what it would look like and what business structure it would look like. So we have partnered with a company called Mobilize in terms of our taxi insurance. They are a spin-off company from SA Taxi. Yes. So they are assisting us with the insurance and the financing of the vehicles, which is also, now that I just want to mention that is also quite a big pain point for the industry, because I know that financing is quite expensive. And I think the last figures I heard was about 26% interest rates. So for government, this is I'm just going to throw that into the pool here. Incentivizing EV uptake in the industry, that's a really good way of assisting, is providing favorable financing terms for operators that want to look at going switching to e-mobility. Also leveraging the taxi recapitalization program, possibly looking at how we can move or adjust that program to also fit into e-mobility. Maserati, is that how I say it? Yeah. So thanks for the question as well. I think it ties very much into what Zinzi asked. So we're very much open to speak to banks and to insurers and to anyone that is keen to work with us. The reason, I'm just going to reiterate that the reason why we're doing the battery leasing model is that we've seen that it works across Africa in the same context. It's working in paratransit sectors. And the reason why it's working is mainly because the capex is reduced and that there's less risk on the operators. And I also just want to mention is that we don't actually take out the batteries from the vehicle. It's just a financing structure to make it more affordable. So the battery would always stay inside. To be honest, we need to have more discussions with banks and with financiers on how that model looks and how can you finance a vehicle where the battery is being owned by someone else. But that is a problem that we'll still get to. So we first want to solve about 50 other problems and do the POC and all those things. But it's definitely on the top of our minds. And I'd like to engage with both of you, actually, if you want to chat afterwards.
I was going to respond on the question about infrastructure. Is that it? The answer is yes. We have about 400 charging stations throughout South Africa now. So the major routes, they are covered. Maybe you might wish there's some more. And of course, this will happen. And there will be more of them rolled out in the future. I have spoken to some of the people already, and they say for this year already, they have high numbers that will be rolled out in South Africa. So I think the charging infrastructure can only grow. There's a good platform now. You can travel to Cape Town, East London, wherever you want to, almost. Yeah, even through Transkei now as well, there are charging stations. So I think you can get to places that you need to get to. You might not get to Namibia yet, but there's a charging station in Windhoek already. Sorry, I just want to respond to Rudy. Some time back, I spoke to the Wheels people, Westbank, because they were afraid that they might be running out of business. So I said, why don't you think about batteries and own batteries and lease that to people instead of cars? Because the battery is one of the major components, as you said. What you can also think about is importing the vehicle without the battery. Then the tax on the on the vehicle will be less. And I think we're not paying taxes on batteries yet in South Africa. Correct. Which is crazy because we don't manufacture vehicles, but we manufacture batteries in South Africa. But you might be able to find a local battery manufacturer as well for taxes. So that's just one thing to think about to make your cost less. Yeah, thanks so much. And just to that, we are doing that now. We're actually speaking to a battery manufacturer in Cape Town. Yeah, and it's again one of those things where we want to have as much of it localized as possible, but we also first need to get to the point where we can form partnerships like that. So we want to prove the business model first. Balance cell. Yeah. I was hoping someone from industry would engage.
Okay. Good presentation. We're much appreciative of that. I remember I saw you at Smart Mobility in Galaga Estate. Okay. My question is on the the partnership. Because from the taxi industry point of view is, we no longer want to be spectators. We no longer want to be consumers within the space of what we do. We want to consume what we use. At the same time, we want to profit and have good partners who are actually taking us as partners, not what has been happening with the industry currently, whereby Toyota is actually owning the industry. We are actually paying Toyota in order to run the space of the industry. I need to understand the ecosystem in as far as the participation of the industry, skill development, and transfer of skills. We've got a lot of graduates who are sitting at home with their degrees, who are actually distancing themselves from the taxi industry, thinking that it's only informal, it's only about formal salsan.
Yeah.
And then the second question is, are you looking at small vehicles as well in as far as the e-hailing space is concerned? Because of, you know what, the young people now, they don't go to the ranks, most of them.
Oh.
They actually request in most cases. So now that's the future. You'll find that 5 years to come, my children, they don't even consider going to the rank. So now you might have to consider having to do this parallel. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, sir. What was your name, sorry?
Sibongiseni Shange.
Bonsing Shange.
Sibongiseni Shange.
Oh, I'll try.
Yeah.
Thank you for the question. Can I reply to that one? There's another question.
Maybe you can combine.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you so much. I just want to find out about this Ikamva taxi. As we've alluded earlier on the size of the battery, that is huge. Where is it situated? Because you wouldn't want to interfere with the passenger capacity and the luggage space of the vehicle.
Yeah.
Secondly, it's just a remark, because there's an expert working group from UN working on the classification of lithium-ion batteries into dangerous goods, meaning these batteries are a threat to an environment. So the handling of these batteries is something that mustn't be overlooked. It's just a remark. Thanks.
Great, thanks. Okay, so I'll speak to the first questions first. So our vision is exactly what you said, is we need to work with the industry. There's been so many, and you'll know this, there's been so many projects where companies have come with solutions for the taxi industry and not with the taxi industry, and that fails because you've got the market, and we understand that. And to the point where new ideas like smaller vehicles for the younger demographic is something that we don't know about. And it's something we would love to partner with the taxi industry in. In terms of the profit and the ownership of the taxi industry in our business model, that is how we structured it. So, like I said, each taxi rank will be its own company. And so that means that if you are a taxi owner operating in a certain taxi rank, then you can invest in that company, and you can make returns off the charging of the vehicles and the leasing of the battery of the vehicles that's operating in that rank. And that's what we want, because you guys know your business better than we do. It's the truth, right? So I'd love to chat to you afterwards as well. In terms of graduates, please send them our way. We would love to work with graduates. We love to work with young people, and we love to work with people that know the industry well. Yeah, with regards to the battery placement, so it's a 70 kilowatt battery pack, which we can actually make larger and smaller if we want to. So if you have a taxi that's only operating 70 kilometers, 80 kilometers a day, we can give a smaller battery and reduce your cost even further. If you have a long distance, 200, 250 kilometers, 300 kilometers a day, we can make it bigger. Those batteries are situated under the floor. So I would actually say that if you get into a iKamva, you would have to look twice if you're not getting into a quantum. So it's not disrupting any of the luggage space as well. In terms of battery handling, battery safety, this is an important concern for us. So we have partnered with companies that do temperature tracking per cell of the battery, so that if there is any spike or irregularity in the temperature, which is usually the cause of things happening with the battery, we can measure that, we can see it in real time, and we can act on that by switching off the battery and handling it before it becomes a problem. Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks very much, Rudy. That was such a nice presentation. Let's put hands together. Great. So he's available. You can continue interacting with him on this. Yeah. So we are going to have 2 more presenters. Then there will be a brief panel discussion. So we'll have right now is Gwen Foster from Interlinks Traceability Services.
Thank you. I just need to share my screen. Can you see that? Okay. Can everybody see that?
Yes, we can see that. Thanks.
Thank you. I do appreciate that we are running late. I will be quick. This is really a trigger presentation, and thank you to everybody. I'm very, very honored to be here. My name is Gwen Foster. I have a long background on the information dimension, and I tend to look ahead. So we're looking at the carbon economy in the context of this particular presentation. Value chains, food value chains. My background includes others, such as mining, for instance, but market access and traceability is really where a lot of the focus is. So proving that the data, it's the data logistics, if you like, but proving that what you see is accurate. And the rules of the game are changing for many factors. The SDGs, transparent supply chains, info technology is fundamental, and meeting the requirements of the carbon economy. And there's a lot of up and down and discussion around that. So not only is it a lot more complex, but there are also challenges and opportunity, which is really what I want to look at. And today is simply a sort of snapshot introduction, if you like. And we refer to this as the 5th industrial revolution. And the key thing, and it has come through very, very strongly today, think of the last presentation, it's about humans and machines working together. And that needs teamwork, it needs ethical practices, and it needs sustainable production. And this is big noise, if I can put it that way. So this is the president about climate change. Climate change is having a huge impact in this respect. And we have committed to playing our part in reducing global emissions. Are we doing it fast enough? No, not necessarily. But we do have an implementation plan, and we do have an inclusive carbon standard that has struggled to a certain extent. I think it was ahead of its time, and it's an excellent time to bring it through now. Transparency, I referred to that. That is all the way through the chain to the point of use, wherever that might be and however that might be. Technology, I've spoken about information, but obviously there are many other technologies, some of which have been referred to today, component methodologies, but key thing is inclusivity. If we are looking at carbon, a lot of what I'm talking about comes out of the agricultural industry, but it applies right through to everything else. We have to go down to ground level. That is where the data comes from. That is where things happen. And that ultimately is our competitive advantage. So there are all sorts of, it's very topical, Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment, first order draft, reporting into the United Nations. This is a global issue. We've got an infrastructure framework coming out of PNG as part of the discussion. That was the 20th of February. We have Indigenous, and this is Australia, Indigenous communities taking the bush food industry high tech, that is information. We have Food for Mzansi saying, oh, cultivate a new moral order in South Africa. And we have PMG coming through, and this was a couple of days ago, session on cooperatives towards building a vibrant cooperative movement. As we know, traceability, it's primarily, and this is certainly what I'm referring to or where I'm coming from mainly, we're having a look at agriculture typically, and a couple of key terms. Tracking is from farm to fork. What we now have very much is going back upstream. Sorry about that. Not sure how I go back. There we go. Tracking is from farm to fork. We are now going upstream because the inputs are vital. Tracing from fork to farm. So that is just part of the definition. The tracing aspect, the tracking, you have the physical product, the tracing you do not. So that is one of the key things. If we do not have the data captured during the tracking phase as a product moves, we struggle to trace it. Transparency says the details are available on demand. And that is from anywhere, by anyone. And you just have to think of somebody who is young going in, scanning a product, having a look at the code and say, oh no, I want to see a happy farmer. That's not a happy farmer. So everything is interconnected. And the big question is, what is authentic? What can we trust? We get into greenwashing, we get into manipulation, we get into everything else. Supply chain era, a lot of the work was when food safety first came through. A lot of work was done at that stage. These were government projects with industry. We are not taking the same approach from a traceability, getting the rules and everything else with the climate story. And we've been into, this is just me scooting, and it's an American statement, but gives a breakdown on the importance of greenhouse gases. We do have a carbon border adjustment mechanism, which is coming through from the EU. And again, we have the entire supply chain in focus. So what they are doing over there is saying, if you cannot demonstrate, Mr. Importer, that your supply chain is meeting certain criteria, we will not give you an import license. And you can imagine the impact of trade over there. And we have that then transferring into GS1, the global standards, which is your typical barcode, wherever that might be. And as an example, launching cannabis products in South Africa, which is a very ground level, very much respected product set. And we are softening the rules relating to that. There is a draft policy on commercialization of hemp and cannabis. And that, if we come back to where we are now, moves into construction, moves into all sorts of stuff, but also into the local use. And in many respects, the benefits from a medicinal point of view. And again, if we look at GS1, they go all the way down to the different types of codes, because this is a global system and we are looking at the various structures and how that takes place. So if you think of the discussion today, the information dimension is absolutely critical because we need these skills at every aspect, every point in the chain. So the Market Access Services Program, I'm going to touch on that. It's one that I currently am passionate about and I'm driving as my sort of exit plan, if you like, for the next 5 years. And the aim is to enable everybody, but the key need is community producer groups, smallholder farmers, SME businesses to access profitable markets in a way that is commercially sustainable. Now those markets obviously depend where you are in the chain, but they also need to be commercially sustainable. Far too many of our projects are research projects and they do not last long enough to ensure that the beneficiaries of those projects actually can keep going at a local level and that it is commercially sustainable. So the MOS principles, common purpose, mutual benefit. If the recipients, if the people in rural areas do not benefit, and there was reference to this earlier, it's not going to work. They will look for getting money, spending the money, and then looking for more money. And we're in that spin in South Africa. It needs to be inclusive. It needs to bridge the gaps. And that isn't only between the people who have and the people who have not. We are looking at gaps in terms of government structures. Now, we're in a good position right now with GNU, if we can sort that out. But for instance, agriculture and environment did not work together. Neither of them worked closely on the information side. So we have that not my job, not my mandate response in many ways, and I tend to push the boundaries, so I've got lots of those. But we need local leadership. We need capable community practitioners. We need advisor groups, and very often the people who have been around a long time, I include myself in that, must pull back from the front line. We are still taking too many decisions top down. What we need in order for those to work, taking a 10-year view perhaps, is we need to evolve the skills. We need education. And if I have a look at what has been presented today, the aspect of information infrastructure, information education has not been conveyed. Yet we have how many people who have graduated, who have skills, who do not have jobs? And that's all public knowledge. There's lots. I can give details. But whatever we do as a result needs to be relevant. There's no point in going in and giving a course on greenhouse gases coming from the farts of a cow if you don't have a cow. It needs to be relevant. It needs to be digestible. We tend to use experts to give training to people who are unaware, and we expect capability and competence. It doesn't happen. So developing community practitioners, absolutely key. Not everybody even qualifies to go to university. Many, many people are poorly literate. Many of our schools, much of our education system is simply collapsing, and that is public knowledge. But it's also not relevant if we look at this sort of approach. And we need advisor groups. So everybody who's spoken today should ideally be an advisor from their respective positions. We need to stay committed until the initiatives are sustainable. And by sustainable over here, I'm talking commercially sustainable by local people, and there'll be some gaps. It's back to how do we do, what do we do if things don't work out? There's a lot of learning. And the MASP slogan is people with money in their pockets are food secure. From a MASP point of view, it fits into the Paris Climate Agreement. We've just had the first global stock take. The second one is coming up in 2028. I'm saying that is a project. What is the outcome of the initial one? What is the intention of the next one? Let us apply our minds. Let's see how that applies to the transport industry. Let's make it happen. And all of this is on the back of climate change, Paris Agreement, America's just thrown it out. You've got all sorts of churn and politics and goodness knows what all right across the world. That's just part of the reality. But that is masked. That is the scope. And my aim is to exit by 2030. And my aim, whenever somebody says I'll do it, I'm saying that's wonderful. Let's build it in. Considerations, the situation is complex. Threats are real. Everything is changing fast. We really are poorly prepared for what lies ahead. Today's discussion, as an example, this has not been adequately covered. Some climate-related policies are contentious. One of the most contentious is acknowledging and restoring the rights of indigenous peoples. We have seen objections to offshore drilling because the local people didn't want that. We have seen this week, last week, we have seen sales of property overturned and discussions about returning, this was in Limpopo, returning to the original inhabitants who were displaced. And we've got all sorts, we need to acknowledge what the intention is and say, how on earth do we get that? And this is a big opportunity over here. Political leadership flux locally and globally affects trade, and that is really where it becomes relevant. And we're all learning. We don't have the answers. It's a complex situation. We do have everything we need to change the future if we work together. And that point has been made a couple of times. We must stay committed to long-term goals and ambitions. We tend to work from one election to the next, and we have a reset button because the new minister or the new structure really doesn't want what the previous guy was doing, or we hadn't achieved that. We have the opportunity now, and there are many pickup points. Ugh. So I didn't get all of that right, but just to give you an idea on some of the pickup points, I didn't realize that I needed to come. We've got a carbon border adjustment mechanism. Kabam, I referenced that. We've got an inclusive carbon standard. We have got Minister Creasy, DFFE supports local government to adapt to climate change. She is now the transport minister. What a wonderful opportunity. We talk about projects. We have local projects, Project Management South Africa. We have global projects, the Global Alliance of Project Professions. We have the opportunity, I have negotiated, I am a member, but I will be working with both. We have that opportunity. And now is the time to make it happen. I'm running out of time. I'm ready to let go. It's been a long climb. Focus on education and skills development tools. Collaborate with Cambridge, Sustainability, Justice and the Law Program. I am an ambassador for South Africa. Liaise with global standards bodies. Example, GS1. I am the only certified traceability auditor for GS1 in South Africa. Let's bring it in. Set up an elder support group, because that's most of me and my associates and friends, and traceability roundtables. I was thrilled to hear about roundtables earlier. Let's do traceability roundtables. Prepare project templates for profiling. Profiling establishes a starting point, the aims and everything else. It is a known process that we have used. This is my fourth wave of change in supply chain systems, starting in the 90s, where we were coming out of sanctions. That then went into the chemical area, that went into et cetera, et cetera. Now we are looking right across. We've got those tools. They're not being applied because we have not shared the information necessarily with people who have come into government, with people who have come into industries, and a lot of the experience is being protected by people because they want contracts as specialists, consultants, whatever. Work with qualified incubators to test the processes and programs. We've got that. Formalize partnerships, initiate proof of concept projects, and open. That's fine. And open, I'm done. Thank you very much indeed.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Gwen Foster. That was a wonderful presentation. Let's put our hand together for Ms. Foster. Thank you, thank you. So, Ms. Foster, just stay online. We will be contacting you shortly during a panel discussion. We're going to have our last presentation now, and that is Mr. Douglas Mitieka from Network Planning, Performance and Quality from Orange Telecommunications. Douglas, are you available online? We go once. Are you available? 2 and 3. Available. Okay.
Doesn't seem that.
Okay. So then for that, we will start our panel discussion. We're going to take 5 questions, and then the panel members will respond. So it will be technically 1 question per panel member. So please, short question. Nelly, please, you can assist. Immediately after that, we are going to have a very exciting session, which will be lucky draw. The lucky people, your time is coming. Yeah, we can take questions. Was there any question online from the online audience? Yes, go ahead.
Good afternoon, thank you. Gert van Eeren, a question to Mr. Karel. The batteries, that's also an impact on the environment to produce those batteries, to recycle them or dispose of them, and also the technology. What are they using in the vehicles? Is it LiFo batteries or is it lithium-ion batteries? The LiFo batteries are more safe than the other one, but they don't store so much energy as the lithium-ion batteries. So I just want to, if we look at our carbon footprint, we must look at the whole life cycle, which includes the batteries. How do we get rid of it? And what happens to those materials? And electric car is much more expensive than a petrol car. You can drive quite a long way with that extra cost of an electric vehicle than when you use your, if you use your petrol vehicle than your electric vehicle. Thank you.
All right, all right. Mr. Karel, please.
Thank you. Thanks for the question. You're referring to the NCM batteries, the ones that contain cobalt. And there's a problem with cobalt. Those batteries are more prone to overheat and catch fire. And also the mining of the cobalt is down in the Congo. And people are complaining about the children. Well, the children are getting jobs.
Just put your mic.
Is this better?
Thanks.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So, because of those reasons, the vehicle manufacturers are moving over to lithium iron phosphate batteries. And these batteries, rightly said, does not have currently the energy density than the other batteries, but it's improving. And they're making headway, and soon I believe the energy density will be much closer. But there's also other batteries that are being developed, like solid-state batteries and sodium batteries instead of lithium. So I think the battery industry is still very, well, it's still in a state of change. It's not finalized yet. It's not mature yet. It's still in its infant shoes. So I think many things will change there, but people are aware of these things. And typically that graph that I showed earlier about the pollution, when I mentioned Eskom and Sasol, that takes into account the battery production and all these things. So even with the manufacturing of the batteries, the pollution that comes from that, it is still cleaner to drive an electric vehicle, even if you use coal-fired power stations to generate your energy. But that is being cleaned up anyway, because we are moving over to renewable energy sources that are much cleaner. Does that answer your question?
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So we're going to take a few questions from the online audience.
There are 2 questions online that was put in the chat room. The first is from Winston Harris. What are the requirements of industry to participate in the SPV partnership? Might be a good opportunity to get TOCs rolling out. Then there is Sivuyele Yokazi at Karo. Do EV batteries deplete much faster, or is fuel consumption comparable to fossil fuel driven vehicles when driving in congested conditions?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think the second question has already been answered many times. So we can request Louis to answer the first question from online.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't understand what the person was asking about participation in what? Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay.
If you listened well, you could have answered. I'm joking. So we're running it like a company. Industry involvement would take the form of two shapes in our minds at the moment. The one is in the form of investment into the company of the hub. The second is on a service level agreement where the taxi industry or association that's operating the rank actually gets compensated for operating the facility, because that's what they're doing already, right? So contracting with the taxi industry in order to run the facilities. So it's those 2 ways. What we're doing at the moment is, because we're really focused on Century City and making it work, is we're working with the associations there, and figuring it out with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rudy, for that. We're going to have 2 more questions. There's a question here, Nelly. And there's another question over there.
Thank you very much. Prof, I think it's nice to talk about the future, but now we are stuck in the here and now. And conference after conference, we are not addressing the here and now, but we are already in the distant future. For instance, the taxi industry right now, there is a problem. Whether we want to talk about it or not, but it is there. My concern is, how do we address it? Because if we address it, and then we'll be able to know where we are getting to, and then bring in new things. Now, to me, there seems to be a confusion between these things. We are bringing something new, and the old is still infested with a lot of problems. We are not solving it. We are just compounding problems. Number 2, when it comes to freight transport, the truckers are ruling the road with viciousness. I don't know when, Louise, have you been on the N3? It's a scary situation, and it's there every day. And nobody is saying anything, even RTMC. They have conferences, but they are not addressing the problem where it lies. The truckers have taken over because rail has collapsed. And everybody says transport for the last 30, I've been here for 40 years. We have been saying we must transfer goods from road to rail. What happened during COVID? Rail has completely collapsed. And there's billions and billions. Guys, let us become practical and become honest to ourselves. Yes, we would like to support the UN things about climate change and what, but we are still stuck in Africa. I don't say let's not do it, but I say let us do more with what we have got than thinking a lot about what is there to come in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Very good afternoon. Is it afternoon or morning?
It's afternoon.
Yeah, my name is Ramu Shebikodise. I'm from Kasi Business Network. So we represent more than 87,500 businesses on our database, all sectors of businesses. So we are part of SADC, which is SADC. We are also part of BRICS, interrelation businesses from your UAE, your China to South Africa. So my question is for Gwen Foster from GS1.
Go ahead.
Yes, so there's a distance relationship between our small businesses who collaborate and partner with GS1 in terms of barcoding and supply chain. So yeah, we do have challenges in collaborating and actually in terms of having those conversations in supporting some of our small businesses. So GS1, it does not support some of the small businesses that we represent.
Yeah, thank you very much. Gwen Foster.
I'm very happy to take that discussion. I absolutely agree with the statement. I am a member of GS1 and also Consumer Goods Council for South Africa. GS1 operates as a division within CGCSA. And I would love to say, how do we solve this? Because there are a number of ways, but I agree it is not being addressed. The other consideration is that GS1 and Consumer Goods Council only have a central office in Johannesburg, and there is value in having sub-units, so we can certainly talk about that. I'm going to come back saying, how do we engage? And my last sort of question, how do we take it forward? We're obviously not going to address it all today. I'm absolutely, you have my 500% support.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe you can take this offline and you can have an email communication. Thank you very much. So we're going to take the very last question and then we get into the lucky draw.
Afternoon, everyone. My name is Stanley Bukana. I'm from Bidvest International Logistics. We recently did a trial on a 4-ton, which is an EV. We did experience some challenges. One of them being the restriction on the payload because of the batteries. And when you try and load it the way you load your normal vehicles, then you get issues when you go to the way bridges. So I just wanted to understand, and I was hoping that this question will be addressed here. Are there any policies or is there anything that's happening in the background to address those issues? Thank you.
All right. I don't know who this goes to. Okay.
Well, I'm not aware of any such, but I think that that is an advocacy point that the Alliance for Climate Action's Sustainable Transport Hub must take, that there should be, you know, the regulations around the weights must be adapted to accommodate these vehicles. So I'm happy to coordinate with you about that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Lois, on that. So we've now come to the end of our discussions. We're now doing the lucky draw. Now between this minute and lunch is just the lucky draw for you to win. So this session is going to be run by Nelly. Nelly, please take over and do the thing.
We just would like to greet our online participants before we start the lucky draw. Thank you for participating. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming through. We really appreciate your presence. We are going to start with the lucky draws. We are requesting that you put in your name tag on the bowl there or your business card. If you don't have, you can write in a piece of paper. We have 2 lucky draws that we are going to hand over today. I will be going around with another bowl now.